Hello everybody and welcome to episode 74 of the Alien vs Predator Galaxy podcast. This is Corporal Higgs, who's very tired and fed up at the minute, and joining me are usual partners in crime, Ridgetop, who's actually quite bitter and angry at the minute. Welcome, Ridgetop.
Hello again, everyone.
And Xenomorphin, who I don't think is as affected by this as me and Ridgetop are.
No. I'm nice and chilled out.
I wouldn't say I'm angry. Maybe a little bitter, but
Definitely better. It's just you bitching in my Facebook chat for the last week.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
If you were a drink, you'd be an acidic vodka.
That sounds about right, yeah. So if that intro hasn't cottoned you on, it's the very diversive The Predator that we're talking about today. So before we do crack on, I'm going to say right now, before I forget, spoilers inbound. We're not pussyfooting around details or anything to do with this. We're just going full into it, into the specifics of the film and our opinions. And before we do actually kick off into a full-blown discussion, just to give a more rounded, preemptive impression of what we think of the film, we're just going to give some teeny-weeny little reviews. So, go on then, Ridgetop, start us off.
So, I was at the premiere in Toronto, and I saw this with the first audience there. And it was... I didn't really know what to think of it at first. I know I didn't love it, but I was entertained. I was laughing at parts of the movie. But I think it's one of those things where you're just you have nostalgia for something and you really want it to be good. And so it takes a second to sink in your problems with it. And I had the same kind of experience with Prometheus and Covenant, walking out with those for the first time. But seeing it 2 more times and really thinking about the movie and seeing other people's criticisms of it, it is a very mixed bag, and plot-wise, it was just a mess. There were some really cool things about the movie. I think especially what stood out to me was Bryan Prince's performance in the Studio 80i suit. Incredible. That was just fantastic. But the movie as a whole for me just I will say I think it's the worst Predator film.
Okay, Xenomorphin?
The comedy was not as overpowering as I feared it would be. I think in terms of something positive I can say about it, I think it has all the elements needed for and would have made a great adult-rated Predator cartoon. And I don't mean that sarcastically. It's exactly what I imagined, more or less, a Predator cartoon to basically be in live-action format.
I'm just having thoughts of the... characters in Archer doing all the loonies. I think that'd really work.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that'd really work. And
you see what I mean, though? It felt like a live-action cartoon in every possible way. But as a live, and it's fun in parts. Every element of it has at least one sort of standout moment, but taken as a whole, it makes for an okay-ish general light-hearted action film. But as a live-action Predator film, it failed for me primarily in terms of tone and atmosphere. And that's where it was based. I think my views I got from the adverts pretty much were, it's what I was thinking it more or less could be, and that's ultimately what came to pass. But writing wise, I think is where it falls down primarily, because it does move along at a very brisk pace, but once you stop to analyze it, it sort of it does not stand up to any kind of logical scrutiny.
Okay, so I didn't get to go to a special showing like Ridgetop did. I sorted him out the premiere. I sorted out Master Chief, the LA premiere, but I didn't get to go to one. Now, I went to a press showing of the film with YouTube's Mr. H down in London, and it was me and him and some other random journo watching it in a little cinema there.
That's kind of special. You still got to see it a week early at Fox's office,
Yeah, I saw it the same day you did, actually. I saw it before you, several hours before you.
You did.
No, but I always enjoy stuff like that anyway, but... I've seen it another 2 times since. I went to watch it in bog standard 3D on release day, and then the day after I went to see it on IMAX 3D, and it was gorgeous on IMAX, by the way. But my views on the film have stayed pretty consistent for all 3 showings. It is a hell of a fun ride while you're watching it, but it moves at such a brisk pace that you don't get a chance to think about what's happening as it's happening, which I think is a real saving grace for it, because when you do start to think about it, it falls apart, and whether that's the writing or whether that's the editing, because I felt like it had been trimmed within an inch of its life in terms of the runtime. It felt like there should have been another 20 minutes there, but whatever the cause for that brisk pace, both helped and hindered it, because the humour masked the issues with the film until it was done with, and I considered it.
I think it's like the cinematic version of sleight of hand, where you're not giving the person a chance to see it's over here, but oh, look, a squirrel, and then you're doing other things. I think that's how a lot of this comes across to me.
So that is my brief thoughts on the film. Ratings we can do at the end, and film listings, I guess, of the series we can do at the end as well. So, let's dig in, shall we? Where did I want to start?
We could start at the beginning. Opening scene was cool. I like seeing the Predator spaceships fight each other. We've never seen a Predator pilot a spaceship in the cockpit before. That was kind of cool.
So damn brief, though. Again, trimming within an inch of its life. That scene should have been a lot longer. There was potentially some really awesome stuff, and I enjoyed what we got, but it felt like it should have been loads better, and it was straight out of Bad Blood, which was a nice way to kick it off as well. I think that was really good.
The script, it was a bit longer. There was a mothership too, I think, in the script.
Oh.
Yeah, so in the leak script that we have,
remember that now.
It was a mothership that the Ark detached from.
Isn't it being hijacked in the script, isn't it?
Yes, a fugitive stole the Ark, a shuttle-ish thing, I guess, from the mothership that upgrade, and I guess his buddies were in. And I assume you quite like the designs, Ridgetop? Very AvP-ish?
I was a little torn about them. I thought they were a bit too sleek. I mean, I do like the silver kind of curved look that we see for some of the Predator ships. Like, you see some that are like Predator 2 that are a bit more rugged, and the sleek silvery ships. I do think this looked a little too ultra clean. Like in AvP, in the beginning of that, when you see the interior of the Predator ship, there's still like stuff everywhere, and it just looks really dark, kind of, with vents and stuff shooting out steam everywhere. It was a bit less atmospheric than I was hoping for, but it still was a cool design. I liked seeing the inside of this Predator ship and how you could see him just walk out into the escape pod. Like, I did like the design. I just think they could have maybe made it just a little more otherworldly.
I was thinking more in terms of the ship exterior appearance.
Exterior,
because it had that hooked sort of bird of prey nose like the mothership from AvP.
Yeah, I mean, I thought both ships looked cool on the exterior. Yeah, I mean, they had, I think one of them had like the VTOL engines, kind of like we saw with Predators. So yeah, the ships looked fine from the exterior.
Let's talk general plot then. Let's not do it beat by beat, because we'll be fucking here forever if we do it that way. So, plot being the issue that I guess we all have and most people have with the film. It's all over the place. And again, like I said, I don't know if that's down to the editing of the actual film itself, or the script. Because would you say it falls apart really around about the middle, towards the end, when the changes take place?
I've seen that in a lot of reviews as well. A lot of people say the first half of the movie, it had him, and then it fell apart in the second half.
And it follows the script.
To me, it's
well.
much earlier it falls apart.
Okay, how so for you?
Well, just from the near enough from the, not the very beginning, but a lot of people have. Now apparently we're talking off air. We've said this about like the customs thing, whether he's posting this huge package to his home. You would have thought that customs would have been sent. Apparently that's dealt with in the novel and the script. It nowhere comes across like that on the film. there's just, it gets messy for me after, the spaceship crash. And as soon as he enters that like he's showing them a gun to get rid of them, and then he swallows that big bit of Predator technology, which looks way too big for him to swallow. Little things like that, but then it builds up and it builds up, and even the stuff with the laboratory is just ridiculously superficial. When a film is portraying anything like that in a way where Independence Day does it more realistically, you've got problems, man. You've got real problems.
Independence Day is a genuinely entertaining film.
Oh, it is. No, I love Independence Day, but it doesn't take it knows it's superficial. It doesn't take itself seriously.
This film doesn't take itself seriously. But I guess that's half the problem.
Independence Day.
No, this film doesn't take itself seriously. The Predator.
Yeah, and that's
part of the problem for people.
Yeah, because the original Predator, that first film very much does take it. I mean, they crack jokes and that, but this film is the polar opposite to the original Predator. In the original Predator, it starts out with that big battle with the guerrillas, the rebels, whatever they're meant to be. And then once, it's on their journey home that the Predator starts making itself known. And as soon as it really makes itself known with the death, ironically, of Shane Black's character, Hawkins, then everything really, even a bit before that with Billy, and he's looking into the trees, it's around there where it starts, they're starting to stop mucking around with joke telling and that, and it starts getting more and more serious and serious and serious. This one sort of starts out semi-serious with this Predator spaceship battle, and then there's the guy, he's trying to take out drug lords or something.
I mean, they're already joking.
Yeah, I mean, that's about as serious a tone as it's about as serious a tone as it gets. And then it gets more and more ridiculous and explosive.
Yeah.
This polar opposite of that. And that's why I said, in terms of tone and atmosphere, it doesn't work as a Predator film. But in terms of story structure, right, definitely from the introduction of the lab, which has no guards. You get down there in an elevator. They don't even have all this hyper advanced Predator gear, in a securely placed where they can get it out for analysis. They've just put it out like a museum behind glass. At that point, it gets really superficial, and especially although Traeger, he's a character. I suppose we're going to go into this later about the characters. He's got a memorable personality. He's treating the entire operation like a gangster or something. He just doesn't come across as the kind of person that will be put in charge of it. He'd be the kind of person who might be third in command or something, or who maybe does field operations or whatever, but he's in charge of the whole thing. And you've got lines like, you have Olivia Munn's character who's brought in, she's meant to be this really intelligent scientist, and so are they with Jake Busey's character, and they're saying, there's a little dig at Predator fangirl fan fiction, what stories they are.
Oh, man.
You want me to find out if someone's fucked a Predator? And they're like, oh, yeah. I'm thinking, you're not going to get two species fucking interbreed. This is Prometheus-level scientific understanding. It breaks down in that laboratory, and you've got a Predator on the table, and it's secured by, 2 or 3 metal straps, which they clearly haven't rated for something of its body mass or whatever. The thing is going to get out. It's so obvious, you can tell. I mean, even if you didn't know from the adverts. And so I would say certainly from the laboratory scene, if not a bit before, it starts getting ridiculous, and it just gets more and more ridiculous. And if people at this point are listening to this podcast and they're saying, no, it doesn't. All I've got to say to you are 2 words: Predator dogs. You know what I mean by when I say that. They're just... When we were doing this, I came home after seeing this film, and I spoke briefly to you guys, and I said, what is the point of them? And I just, impulsively, I just said that they're gremlin-faced budget sponges. They've just used up the special effects budgets on things which are pointless. They don't do anything. They have a cutesy stroke comical scene, which you're watching it and you're thinking, no, they're showing this to foreshadow something because in writing structure, yada, yada, yada. Nothing happens with them. It goes nowhere. Budget and time and script was wasted on them, and it's utterly superfluous. And I got that same feeling with, as much as I hate the term for them, the loonies, where individually, yeah, they're fun to go on the ride with, but you could take the loonies out of the story completely, and the story wouldn't change. They're not there for any discernible purpose other than to crack a few jokes and that, which, yeah, are funny, but they feel you watch it afterwards and you go, it felt hollow and pointless. That you never got much of a sense of who they were, and you didn't care whether they lived or died. And that's why I say it goes a lot of risks pace, but definitely from that laboratory scene, if not before, it starts getting really shallow and superficial in a way the original Predator never was.
I think, honestly, all three of the previous Predator movies took themselves seriously, at least to an extent. Like, even Predator 2. Even Predator 2, that got silly at some parts, that movie took itself seriously. It still had genuine moments of tension in that movie.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think this movie it took tension, and there was no tension in this movie. It was just an action comedy. But yeah, and I think honestly, Casey Brackett was joking about that in the lab. But you're right. The conversations.
She was joking, but that's why I say it's like Prometheus level logic, and that's when I started cringing. And I said it. I'm not going to be totally negative on it. There were standout moments. It's fun in parts, but there are moments like that where you're thinking, this guy, he's just doing like a cartoon version of a US government agency and their secret, lab. It's written in such a cartoonish way that, your 12-year-old self might have been fist pumping, but watching it as an adult, you're just going, oh, Jesus, really? That's it? That's what we're getting? When just that alone, a scenario of a predator, a captured predator in a government laboratory. I mean, you could construct a whole film about that on its own.
Yeah, you could.
And it's just an excuse to have it just flip out, and then you're off on a coach.
There are lots of specific moments that could have been their entirely own narratives or plots within this.
There's a lot of waste squandered potential.
They try to cram a lot into it to the point where none of it is properly fleshed out. And again, this is where I think the runtime thing comes into it as well, because it felt like there should have been so much more to pad out some of the bits they were trying to do. And you mentioned earlier about feeling like Traeger shouldn't have been a commander and
not in charge of the entire project.
But this will go to it. And there was something else you mentioned that I can't remember. I can't think what it was now. But yeah,
I said a lot.
I need to take notes while you're talking, so I fucking remember what I want to address. So yeah, Traeger wasn't supposed to be in charge. He was. This is where I feel like the film's a victim of the editing, because he was supposed to be second in command to Woodhurst, and Woodhurst was completely cut from the film. As far back as the first screenings in November of last year, he was completely
Woodhurst
gone.
Was not part of Project Stargazer. He was just part of the military and he had some oversight over Stargazer, which Traeger ran.
We can't put too much stock in that script, because at the end of the day, so those details are from the leaked script, which was dated April.
Yeah.
So we don't. While a lot of what we know was film matches up with what is in that in terms of the third act, and a lot of it goes along with what was in the finished film. We don't know specifically what was changed and what wasn't in regards to the stuff we haven't seen. Obviously, we can't fucking know that because we haven't seen it. So whether Stargazer and Area 52 were still supposed to be separate entities, I don't know. But he was supposed, Traeger was supposed to be second to Woodhurst, and in the script that we've got, Traeger was running Stargazer as an off-the-books, supposed to be kind of secretive thing.
Which the leaked script was the shooting script, pretty much. I mean, there were a couple little changes, like Keys in there. It was just a different scientist character before, but that was the script that was used. Obviously, they went back and did some rewrites for the reshoots, but
that specific draft was a year old before they started filming. Nearly a year old. There would have been. It's unfair to say that would be the shooting script. Yes, doesn't seem like the bulk of it changed, but so much of the specifics could have. Is my point. We can't.
I'm just saying, you read the script and it's very much beat for beat the movie we saw, with the exception of the reshoots.
Yeah, broad strokes, it is very much the same, but there is still specifics in that are different to the film.
But then all we can go by is what ended up on screen. And I say there are standout moments. It is fun. You know, there are moments of character interaction. I laughed in moments, but it's a crazy mess, and not necessarily in a good way.
It feels so butchered. Like, even the stuff around the Predator lore feels butchered, like whether it was a result of the test screenings or whether it was a result of reacting to complaints online, whatever. That all feels incoherent. And,
yeah.
Like,
which parts?
All of it, really. I mean, so they don't...
Oh, just before you go on, I will say what I did like in the spaceship thing. It's, you know, I'm not going to say, it's an awesome addition, but it was nice to see how predators traverse those long distances. They just open up a rift.
I honestly
and it
really
goes through. That was quite nicely done.
I really didn't like that. I thought the whole.
Did you not?
No, the tearing a rift through space. That was like something we'd see in Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, it just felt a little too fantastical for me. Like
I
Alien and
that
Predator
for me.
Alien and
it was
Predator
either going to be that or a rip-off of Hyperdrive, wasn't it?
I don't know. Alien and Predator have always been like a more realistic take on sci-fi for me. And when I saw like the Predator ship just throwing out some energy and tearing a hole through space to arrive instantly at Earth, I was like, that's a little out there. Like it felt a little too far for me.
I don't think wormhole drives are that really out there.
I don't think it was a wormhole because there was no like passage. It was just literally a rip that it could traverse through and close behind. It's to me that looks like something it's not the stereotype of a wormhole or whatever. It looks like a different way of doing than you typically see in sci-fi. So that's something we disagree on. See, I like that. Ridgetop didn't. So I think right there we've got difference of opinion.
I just think with the Alien and Predator and AvP franchises, like it's always been a point, like the traversal of space takes time in this franchise compared to like Star Wars and Star Trek, where it's pretty immediate. So I think that for me was just like kind of undermined.
Oh, you wanted them to take the physical distance then?
Well, ship was faster than the other and somehow got away. I don't know. It just the instant tear a hole through space was just a bit much for me.
Fair enough. It wasn't one of the things that bothered me. I liked it.
But yeah, what were the other things you said that they cut up the lore and such?
They really toned down the hybrid upgrade stuff because there were a number of other creatures that ended that I think they shot that were
they did yeah.
Yeah. There were a number of other predator hybrids. They had like a spider predator monster was one from the script.
I was looking forward to seeing that one.
So who knows? Maybe they were afraid of fan reaction with that, and they decided to pull it back. But
that was something that people were whinging about. But I'm thinking in terms of like a lot of the elements were toned down. So without interrupting me, guys, the whole autism superpower thing with Rory knowing all the languages in the world and being able to. I mean, obviously it does figure it out really fast, but it doesn't make a big deal out of it until the end, where it crops up again out of nowhere. I think it was pretty consistent throughout the script. The whole hybridization thing, that was toned down again until the end when it crops back up. The general creature hybridization as well, that's completely toned down. Even the dogs were supposed to be more predator-ish, I guess, in the earlier stuff that we've heard of.
They were still pretty predator-ish. I mean, they had dreadlocks and green blood.
They didn't have friggin' Mandabot. Well, they try and give those an actual purpose. It's not hair. It's so throwaway in the film as well. They make a bigger impact in the fight with the upgrade. They try and cut the upgrade's mandibles to throw, not mandibles, dreadlocks to throw it off balance and disorientate it during the final fight. So even everything, all the lore elements just seem so throwaway.
I wouldn't have minded that, because I've thought to myself, maybe they are sensory organs and they used to live under the sea or something. So I wouldn't have minded. But
I like that.
A possible biological reason for why they exist, because I've never bought that they're literal braided hair like the Stephen Perry novels. They always look, meaty and fleshy to me.
Yeah.
To give them an actual purpose, I think was nice. But it's one of many little throwaway comments in terms of the lore. So, we find out that the fugitive has human DNA in it, but apparently not all of them do it, according to Shane in the aftermath. But where's that has a minor impact in the overall thing of it. The dreadlock has a minor throwaway thing in it. The whole invasion thing gets 2 lines of dialogue, and then we have this
was so weird,
random tacked on ending because they needed something to be in the cargo, because they had to get rid of the hybrids. It's just a mess of patchwork, is what it is.
Well, it's what I said about there's a very cartoonish tone. I mean, this is a problem when you get screenwriters who want to, this Project Stargazer, and I still say I wish Shane Black had done his research, because they are actual US government things that exist out there for recovering, say, Russian and Chinese downed satellites and missiles and things. They've actually got literal jurisdiction for any hardware that comes in from outer space. But you've got this thing that's meant to have Project Stargazer, and it's meant to have taken over from the outfit we saw in Predator 2. And you have this same thing going on that we saw in Alien Resurrection, where Joss Whedon was like, okay, it's 100 or whatever it is years into the future. I'm going to do away with Colonial Marines. I'm going to do away with Weyland-Yutani. I'm going to replace them with this United System military. We've got the same thing here. They've done away with
OWLF.
Which I still say it sounds like what they were labeling the Predator, but if that's their name. And it's like they wanted to bring in a new outfit to replace it that was going to be, bigger and better. But in the same way that Joss Whedon invented the USM that was bigger and better, and it was like Colonial Marine and Weyland-Yutani combined, but it ended up being way more inept.
Yeah.
And that's what I got with this. Like the Gary Busey thing, his outfit he was leading in Predator 2, they had that it was very haphazard, their plan for trying to capture a Predator.
How much of a waste was he as well?
I know he was. But in here, you've got the same thing going on where Shane Black, he's decided, right, it's going to replace this CIA thing, and it's going to be bigger and better. But they're meant to have been studying predators and that for years. Presumably interviewing people who've encountered them, yada, yada, yada. And yet you have this battle right at the end, and Traeger, I forget what his name is, he's meant to be leading this battle, and it's like they've all forgotten that predators, they're going to see them in the woods, they're going to stand out a mile because the thing's seeing them in thermal. And that was the first thing I thought of. I thought, okay, if you're not going to band together to attack the thing, it's only got one way out of that spaceship. It's easier to put the thing under siege. But they all went into the woods, and they're meant to be this government outfit. They're all acting like bitchy mercenaries rather than professionals. But they completely forgot anything that we as viewers know about the Predator, and they just got their asses handed to them. And it came across as very cartoonish when they should have gone for this more ruthless, more professional way of portraying stuff like that, but you get this very cartoonish vibe that flows throughout the whole thing. And sometimes cartoonish works, but at other times, like you have the Predator dogs, all they basically do is they stand there, they soak up bullets, and it's just an excuse for random shots of heroes firing guns that don't actually seem to do anything. And one of them lunges once, and that's it. All they do is stand there, and it's very cartoonish. Yeah. And yet, in a live-action film, it doesn't work in a live-action film.
Yeah, I mean, compare the dog scenes to what we got in Predators with
they were much more realistic dogs.
Yeah, and that scene was awesome when they did that. But you're right,
it seemed like animals would.
Yeah, and it seemed like Traeger's men were just, like you were saying, like they were totally inept. Like you look at even the prequel novel, it stands in stark contrast to that, where they had this trained group that had been training to hunt down a predator for a long time, the Reapers. And I honestly think that book, if they would have made a movie out of that book, it would have made for a better movie. And
having read that, now I read that book, but when I think I heard the podcast we did on it, and now it's with the guy who wrote it, and when I heard they're calling them the Reapers, and they've been, studying to go up against the Predator, and the Predator is this big bad thing, and they've been, these elite group of professionals from all day. Is it just my impression, or did that come across very like it did in Blade 2? Because they had a group called the Reapers, and they were very much like that, and then they joined forces with.
So long since I've seen that movie.
Honestly, the impression I got was it. I don't know if they've copied some elements out of Blade 2, but it felt a lot like that.
I think I honestly enjoyed the prequel novel more than the film.
Yeah, I agree.
It was the sort of thing I think they should have tried doing in the film. There's so much story potential in having this organisation that's going around, hunting predators and retrieving their technology and stuff like that. Like Traeger using the shoulder cannon. That's an awesome idea, but I don't think the film earns it, because 1 second is toying with the shoulder cannon on after the fugitive's been killed. And then suddenly, when it gets to the fight scene, he's strapped it to his shoulder and he knows how to use it.
There's a lot of...
It didn't feel earned.
Basic story similarities with the prequel novel and the main one. Like, they both start off in an operation in South America. Both of them have a predator escape from the lab. And that was the thing. Like, if the prequel novel, a predator escaped from the lab, one thing we were worried about is, like, it would be kind of... It would seem weird that one would just do it again. They wouldn't have safeguards for that. But no, the Predator just wakes up and he busts out of there.
There's no change. It was portrayed the same way. There's no one...
Mm-hmm.
It was almost the same scene.
I watched that first. Thought what came to me was it's the Ridley Scott syndrome. No one's wearing biohazard suits. You would have thought they've at least put it in its own sort of armoured cell, its own enclosed... No, it was just in the middle of the room. There was no safeguards.
No, but they all had decontamination processes and the clothes. I mean, granted, it might not be.
And then they were just in there breathing the same air. They were just touching it with, naked hair. It was. But either way, they should have put it in its own. I mean, that was something like, go back to Independence Day. They bothered to put the one that Will Smith knocked out, and they put it in its own enclosure. In a real situation or something like that, they could have just flooded with radiation or something. But, they bothered to show that they isolated it. In this, they just literally put it in the middle of this control room. And, when I heard about
it's not meant to be a control room. It's supposed to be a lab.
It looked like one. Yeah, well, it looked... It's whatever it is. It's their main hub of operations or whatever.
No.
They also say it's...
And it sounds very much like they haven't learned any lessons compared to this prequel novel, which we know that the guy who wrote it, he did discuss this with Fred Decker, and they were having discussions. So you would have thought that they'd have talked about that and tried to make the film version way more professional.
Yeah, there's a complete disconnect between the prequel novel and the film. But I kind of expect that these days, I'm afraid.
Yeah, they also mention in the film that he's highly sedated, so I guess he wasn't sedated enough.
Yeah, what brought him out of that? Because...
It was when the alarm went off.
I think the intention is he's playing possum.
He couldn't have been very sedated.
It's something the script makes more clear, is that he was there to get his shit. He allowed them and he played possum.
See, that didn't come across either in the film.
In the script, they don't say he's sedated, but in the movie, they do. But in the script, they do specify he's playing possum.
Well, then I would assume I remember them saying sedated. I would assume they were doing that because they were monitoring its vital signs. So there must have been. So it came across. I remember watching it. Well, it could have just come out of it, whatever. But it struck me when I was watching it. It was way too coincidental. They brought on this new scientist who apparently her only qualification for being there was she once wrote to the president that she wanted to meet a space animal. But they brought her in, and that exact moment the thing woke up. There needed to be some sort of motivation thing, some sort of factor where maybe she would have done something accidentally to wake it up, but it just happened to wake up. In those moments that it would have, if that was a cartoon, that's exactly what you expect to see in a cartoon, and it would have worked in a cartoon. But it just felt too, oops, sorry, part, there go my trousers, and there's a predator running around.
So I'm getting frustrated now. Which is part, which I always knew was going to be my issue with the film, is just when I sit and try and make it make
it's when
sense.
You try and when you analyze it afterwards.
This is one of those movies, to some degree, you have to turn your brain off and just be willing to have a good time.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, because I don't feel like I have to do that with
any of
the other three Predator movies. Even with their moments of silliness and their one-liners, it's just enough so that part is satisfying without going too overboard. And as far as the lore issues go, I mean, it was pushing it with the lore for me. Like, it wasn't totally out the window like Alien Covenant was. It didn't make me angry, but it was pushing it. It's like, okay, now we've done the bigger, badder Predator thing twice now. And you're kind of getting into, do predators want to take over the world, and are they upgrading themselves, and who are these different clans at war with each other, and like, there
was clearly something changed. Now, I mean, you guys can say this because you've read more of the script than I have, but it struck me because they mentioned it's got exoskeletal armor. It didn't have any exoskeletal armor whatsoever. It was just like a normal predator.
You see its skin changes in the movie.
Did you not catch the
You
skin
do?
changes?
I did not.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it just looks like normal skin and
No,
muscle.
you see his skin hardening. He changes color. He goes from like a beigeish to a reddish blackish when he's like armored.
Which I loved about it.
I didn't pick up. It might have just been me then.
It's a shame that I love Predators. Again, I will say I'm probably one of about 4 people in the world that does.
I love it too.
Yeah.
Predators is awesome.
You like Requiem, so you're not really legitimate backup.
That doesn't hate. Just because I have a couple movies that everyone hates that I like doesn't mean all of my tastes are bad.
Yeah, you're not a true fan, man.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah, stop doing that, please, people. I'm glad if you liked the movie, and if you didn't, I'm sorry.
We're all fans.
Ribbon of Ridgetop aside, what was I getting at? Oh, yeah. So we've got Predators, and now we've got the Predator, where we're having Predator on Predator conflict, and none of them have done it. None of them have done it completely satisfactorily, which is annoying me, because I want that concept to. It's such a simple concept, and it should be an awesome on-the-screen thing, but nobody's really done it in a way that's genuinely satisfying. And
I think it was in Predators. You didn't?
It kind of was, but it looked like 2 guys in the suits kind of.
No, I thought the fight was awesome in Predators.
The fight I enjoyed, but I mean there's no real reason for it in Predators. I mean, we know that the big ones sometimes hunt the smaller ones, was about the extent of the actual conflict. And like in this one, there was genuine potential for a bit of species expansion with these 2 clans at each other over, philosophical differences. But the film ruins that by having them both being hybrids. Both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they didn't need to have the one predator have human DNA, although that's the reason they bring Casey there. So, and I think with Predator it was just mysterious enough, like when he was saying, well, it's the difference between a dog and a wolf. Like
And that encapsulated so much, that phrase, dogs and wolves. You totally got the concept, and it didn't needed all this exposition being shitting all over the place like you tend in this film.
Kept it mysterious enough in Predators where you could let your imagination kind of run wild a bit and go with it. But in this movie, it seemed like they hinted at too many things without going anywhere with them. Yeah. Like, do Predators want to take over the world? And, they're upgrading themselves. Like, is this... And Shane Black, he was, saying some stuff like, maybe they aren't above cheating a little bit. And there's not all Predators are doing this. But the audience doesn't know that. And when Casey says it in the movie... And she's like, well, I think I know what's going on in Predator world. It's like, it makes it very general seeming. So for me, the lore, it was just being pushed in. Like, I think you can expand the mythology and you can expand the lore without pushing against it and without breaking it. Like, look at Predator 2. Predator 2 expanded the mythology. It built on what came before. We don't need a bigger, badder, different Predator in every movie. I mean, look at the expanded universe. They are doing the expanded universe so good these days. Which is why it's so frustrating to see the movies be so divisive, is because you look at the novels and you look at the comics and they're so effective and they tell these great stories and they build on the mythology without breaking it. I mean, Predator Hunters, there's a good movie right there. Like, just turn those comics into a movie. So yeah, it's frustrating to see them think they have to please the crowd by adding all this new crazy stuff without just doing what I mean. Everybody loves The Fugitive more than The Upgrade. Everyone I've talked to who has seen the movie love The Fugitive way more than The Upgrade. This is the bigger, badder, new Predator. Like, why are people saying that? It's because they love the Predator. They connect with that original feeling they get with the Predator, and you can do that in new and interesting ways without just going overboard.
I think if they'd have just narrowed in on just that conflict between the two without all this crazy other stuff on the side about perhaps they want to invade or stuff like that, and just this difference between two clans of one wants to tinker, which I think is realistic. I'm going to say it. If we had the ability to design a genes, which we're getting there with kids, aren't we, with unborn kids, that's realistic. Why the fuck wouldn't they? They are cheaters. They cloak. They have fucking plasma technology.
They're opportunists.
So it makes sense to me that some of them would be willing to do that. And just this basic idea of a traditionalist and these new guys fighting each other over that difference would have been a perfectly fine plot for me. I would have been happy with that conflict between them purely because of that.
So we would get the Predator version of Fiddler on the Roof.
So some of the Predator weapons did seem a bit too, like when the helmet got dinked and it just turned around and shot automatically.
Yeah, I didn't like the psychic stuff.
That didn't make much sense to me, that thing, because it's on the helmet that wraps around you, yes, sort of, but it's only facing the front, and at that point you're thinking that completely negates the whole point of the shoulder cannon.
Yeah, and also in the beginning, the fuse is knocked out. In the script, he's just already knocked out, but in the film, I think something comes out of the wrist gauntlet.
Like
it's just like a bladed thing, and it just knocks him out automatically. And I was like, that's weird. For so many of these weapons to just be automatically reactive, like, where's the hunt in that? Where's the honor in that? Like, this was the movie without the hunt element. Like, saw the hunt in all three movies, and this one was on a mission, the other was on a mission. Yeah, The Upgrade kind of had the hunt thing when he was like, well, I'll give you time advantage and I want to get McKenna. But that made no sense either. How did he know this kid was so special? Like, when did he decide he wanted to get this kid? Like,
that's the thing. That's why I say it's very cartoon. It was saying, this one is the ultimate warrior. This one has acted more of a warrior than any of you. And the kid's done nothing. It's like the kid's deciphered stuff somehow. The Predator itself has no real way of knowing that. It knows it. It's seen the kid sit down at a table, and then the next thing it knows, it's seen the kid being escorted into where the spaceship is. That's the extent of its knowledge about this child. There is nothing about this child that should make it go, this one, I want this one, this is the warrior. And, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we get in, like, the whole, why predators want to invade the world, even a lot of that is not necessarily accurate. It's all characters making assumptions.
Mm-hmm. That was another
which I'm sort of glad for. I mean, I'm glad for that because some of the stuff that is a bit hokey, you can just sort of hand wave away because it's just the characters assuming stuff. But it's like, as you said, like you don't even have this conflict between the two predators being about one group is genetically modifying themselves and the other one isn't, because they both are. And and the sad thing is, aside from the fact this took 4 years, which is why a lot of people say it should be better than it turned out.
It's like Colonial Marines all over again.
Yeah. The only reason that actually done that one to say, oh, The Fugitive was also doing it, was for that one throwaway gag. And if it wasn't for that one throwaway gag, you could have actually made a believable subplot, but they threw that away for the sake of a gag.
Which gag are you referring to again?
The one about did someone fuck a predator?
Oh.
Which, it made me laugh when I watched it, but it wasn't like a laugh out loud thing.
Yeah.
But because they've chosen to do that, and that was the only way they could think of to have Brackett come onto the project.
Well, I guess
there was literally no reason for her to be brought onto the project.
Well, I guess it was implied that he was a part of this clan and he was starting to upgrade himself, but maybe he felt it was wrong or something. And he broke. I mean, that's all just speculation. Another thing that was weird is how ready they were to just kill Casey Brackett, like just because she's outside trying to catch the predator.
They brought her in, and there's a, what should I do? Oh, kill her and take her contraband. And I'm thinking, she's on your side. She's she's presumably already signed non-disclosure stuff when she was invited on the base. Or were you really that much more inept and thick that you didn't think that? You just bringing on random civilians to your hyper-secret palace of doom. No, kill her and take her stuff, take her shit. Especially when she was doing what, Busey, Mr.
He was like, go get my alien.
And get,
She grabbed the spinal juice. Like, I don't know why she grabbed the spine juice. I guess that was why they wanted to kill her. But why would she get that in the middle of a breakout? Why would she just grab that? It makes no sense. And
move the plot forward later. Well, no, it doesn't even move the plot forward later when she's looking through it, does it? It's just being able to say the upgrade thing.
Yeah. That's it. There's a lot of moments like that. There are little moments where if you'd on their own, they could have been expanded and they could have made you go, oh, that's interesting. But because it's done in such a haphazard way and then you're onto the new thing, or then a random predator dog comes along and wants to ball or whatever, you don't get chance. The film doesn't give itself chance to expand upon the things that could have potentially made it matter more. It wouldn't have necessarily fixed it, but it could have made it a more legitimate viewing experience, like story-wise.
She's jumping on top of the bus, and then later she jumps on top of the upgrade and is just shooting the pim, and she knows her way around an assault rifle, and it's like, okay, you're a scientist who teaches at a university,
I could have bought it, because that could have been an indication of something in her past. Maybe she's really into home defense or what. You don't know what her back could have been. But because you didn't get that, she's just like generic scientist number 3. And I think Olivia Munn did a good job at her performance, but she didn't have much material to work.
Yeah, her performance was fine. There just wasn't enough character development there with any of them, really. But especially with her, because she was, on par with these soldiers. Like, it's like, okay, like, did you come from a military family, or were you in the military? Like, what's the deal with this? So I just think there needed to be a bit more development behind her character and why she was so willing to throw herself in harm's way over a lot of this. Also, real quick, the scene that they introduce her, they cut that scene because of the whole controversy that everybody knows about, but you could definitely feel that it was abrupt. It was, you could tell it was a last minute cut. It wasn't enough time to really introduce her character. And so it's a shame they couldn't replace it with something else, but it did feel a little too abrupt.
Yeah. Whereas it just kind of switched to, hello, here's a scientist, and then it went almost Hellboy-esque, where, she's in an elevator, she's down in the laboratory, and then she's meeting a predator.
I did like the elevator bit with the nod to the Haunted Mansion. I thought that was kind of funny. But.
Yeah, I laughed at the joke, but it was just like security was so fucking lax in that place. It was just, especially in a place where they're holding an incredibly, unbelievably ferocious creature, where even if they're sure it's sedated, they have to think in terms of, well, is something going to come along and rescue it? Or is, you could have any number of things happen. And there was like a couple of guys in the elevator. I don't even think any of them had a gun, did they? I don't remember them, but it was really, really basic. But yeah, she definitely needed background to her, definitely.
It would have been cool if they'd have done something maybe like Prince in AvP2, where they had it sort of, in that tube and it was all strapped down with the metal and stuff. The Predator I'm talking of. I guess you haven't really played AvP2, have you? Maybe Ridgetop knows what I mean about when...
I played it, but it was years and years ago.
Sacrilege, you should be playing it every few years. Every few years, that masterpiece.
It plays on Windows.
Let's get on that Let's Play, Aaron. We're going to do that one.
Yeah, well, maybe when I'm more in the mood.
Anyway.
I'm deflated by it all at the minute.
Yeah, no, it's honestly like kind of demoralized me as a fan a little bit. It's frustrating that Fox just seems struggling with getting these movies right because they're not universally loved. That's obvious. The Alien prequels aren't, and this film has been very divisive among fans. The EU is great right now, so I hope we get more games and I hope we get more novels and comics, but it's a shame these movies have just been so divisive. And honestly, I do think we need an alternate cut of this. I mean, we've seen that with the Alien movies, with the quadrilogy.
You're assuming an alt cut would make it better.
No, I'm not assuming that because I'm sure I would have problems with the alternate cut. But I mean, when Fox hired Shane Black, you got to kind of know what you're getting. And yeah, there was all this crazy other stuff that maybe Fox got nervous because of a test screening about. And they decided to scale a lot of that back. They thought it was too funny. They thought the daylight messed with the tone. And maybe it would have, but now we're always going to be wondering about that. It's like a Justice League situation with fans calling for the Zack Snyder cut. Now we're just always going to be left wondering, what about those friendly Predators? Like, those were two other practical suit Predators that ADI created. Like, my favorite thing in this movie was the Fugitive and ADI's suit for that. And I thought the armor was cool. I know ADI didn't do the armor. I believe that was Quantum Effects, which that was kind of weird why they didn't. Like, ADI is capable of doing the armor. They did it in both AvP films, so I don't know why they wouldn't just have them do it. But regardless, the armor looked cool.
Oh, I've got I remember when this was back in the early 90s, but when they made Return of the Living Dead 3, because they were on such a tight sort of shooting schedule and that, they said to the guy's director, well, how are you going to do this? And he said, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to hire each element of the special effects out to a different special effects company. And that's how they got it done on time. It might have been a similar situation where they thought they'd give ADI the creature stuff, another company other stuff, and so it might have been a time issue.
Well, given how long the film was in production, I can't see that being.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, ultimately it was, yeah, but that might have been the initial plan, possibly.
But I loved the suit. The suit was right up there with Wolf, like with one of the best Predators. I liked the new texture they kind of gave the dreadlocks, and Bryan Prince's performance was so good. Like, he was just really mobile, running at full speed in full Predator costume. And his performance was right up there with Ian White and Kevin Peter Hall. It was just great.
It was great to see him so mobile as well. I mean, I wish we'd have got a bit more of the parkour, I guess, that Bryan was known for.
Yeah, they said a lot about that in interviews, didn't they? And you never really got to see it.
But even then, they came across as really mobile. Even at the start, when you see it was moving fast, and it was great to actually see it in the trees again. With that classic sort of pose. But yeah, I completely agree. I think the suit looked amazing. ADI wet the skin for this one because it looked. I love ADI, but I'm not a fan of the Predator skins in the AvPs. Even Requiem, I still think it was a little. It's still a bit dry, yeah. But this one, I think, looked fantastic.
Well, he's an old grouchy Predator in that one.
Yeah, it didn't look like dead skin.
Grandpa Predator.
Wolf is still the best Predator. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
Well, how did the Elder look in Predator 2? Because that was meant to be.
Well, I'm pretty sure that was the original Predator, wasn't it? That they
Yeah,
repainted.
it was, but they just sort of added. I remember if that one looked wet.
Yeah, I think that one did as well. But that was still Stan Winston. So, but yeah, it looked great in this one. I really like the armor. You know, it is different, and yeah, none of the fan explanation reasons that we came up with worked in terms of it being like police armor or whatever. But I don't give a shit at this point.
No, it just looks like a modernized, sleeker armor, and the black and gold accents. It's kind of almost like Egyptian looking. Like, it was a cool, interesting new design, and I really dug it. The thing that didn't make sense to me was how all the Predators had the same mask. Like, they already had a mask that was the same one he had, but undamaged, and then the two friendly Predators that would have been in the movie have the same mask. Like, so that part was like, well, shouldn't they have different masks? But
well, in Predator 2, don't several of the Predators they don't each have an individual unique mask?
In Predator 2 they do.
Yeah.
They're all unique.
I've thought some of them were copies, like there are 2 or 3 that are the same.
I think one has the
P1 mask.
The P1 mask. One has the original P1 mask.
The Gort one.
The Gort one, yeah. And the rest were all unique or maskless. Which was, I if they were the other friendlies and it wasn't, you know, an actual reason as to why they all had the same mask, that would have been a bit and felt a little bit lazy. Just because of how we are used to all these different mask designs, I guess.
Nowadays, yeah.
But since it wasn't in the film, I don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
But the actual design, yeah, I fucking loved it. I love that gold and black. I really love that inlaid gold. And the samurai skirt, I thought that was awesome. And even in terms of, I felt like he had a personality as well. I know it's going to speak to the tone and the comedy and the comicness, but like the thumbs up, I fucking loved that. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah. I didn't mind that because to me, that's the kind of thing like a military type person might do. If, you know, somebody calls out for their buddy and you've killed them, you might well have to use their cut off arm to just sort of give a waving sign away. To me, that wasn't out of the realms of possibility.
I really like that too. And the scene where he gave them the warning shot and then pointed his finger down for them to drop their weapons, like little things like that really gave him a good personality, and it was cool to see that in a Predator character. I think in the original script they had said that Woodhurst was trying to recruit this one, like he was a defector and he wanted them to join the friendly Predators that were already there. Which I wonder if the Fox got nervous because of those were some of the first images that were leaked of the friendly Predators, and maybe they got nervous. Maybe that they got nervous that fans would think it would be too much like AvP. Like, people have always been iffy about the team ups. I've never minded them. I think if it's done right, it can be cool.
Yeah. If it's earned, I think they're fine, but I don't think they've been earned in any of the film team ups so far.
Yeah,
I think that's you said it earlier on, that's the key word for this. There's a lot of the problems arise out of not feeling one element or the other is necessarily earned. If it makes logical sense, some things still don't feel right for that reason. In the same way that, you know, Shaw and Daniels in the new Alien prequels, they don't feel like they've earned the status of Ripley, even though they've been clearly written to be Ripley-esque, Ripley-like. You don't feel like they've earned that respect. It's a similar thing for any element.
It was just sad for me because, like, as soon as the upgrade killed Fugitive, which I wish there was more of a fight with that.
Yeah. Again, it goes to what I was saying earlier about wishing that it had been more of a focus in this conflict, because it would have been great to see them dealing with each other over a protracted period of time. Because that's another thing, you know, I was saying about the conflicts not really being done well in either of the films. So, you know, Predators the fight, while I do believe the result, was so short, and in this one, while I do believe that the upgrade is a fucking monster and it could probably do that, it was just so short and it wasn't satisfying conflict. It wasn't satisfying end to the conflict.
I think even in the Predators fight, like, it was satisfying enough because the classic put up a fight, and even though it ended with the Super Predator killing him, it was a...
They're not Super Predators.
Well, Berserker Predators, whatever you want to call them.
Thank you.
it was a satisfying fight where either one of them could have come on top, but the Berserker Predator, Mr. Black, whatever, just got the upper hand. But this one, it was just he was totally decimated, But as far as like facing the humans, he didn't seem particularly more of a threat than the Fugitive was.
It was less, because typically one of my problems was that it was meant to be bigger and badder, but most of the time it showed up and it just sort of stood there. People were shooting at it, and it was just a bullet sponge. Whereas what made the original creature, especially in the first film, a predator would get shot, it would react to it. It might not kill it, but it gave it pain, and it would have those later scenes where you had the medical kit and it would need to heal itself, and you would see it yell out in agony because it was taking a bullet out or whatever. This thing, okay, it's meant to be bulletproof, but it's like the predator dogs. It gets shot at and it doesn't react to getting shot a lot of the time, which makes it look mentally slow. It makes it look like it's not processing what's going on around it, which makes it look less intelligent. And the original creatures, some of the allure of that is they're using their skill and their to try and not get hit in the first place.
It very much acts differently to the predators, but that is something that could have been worked into, like, how to explain it. So, at this point, it's expressing confidence in its ability, in its armor. And I'm going to say again, I fucking love the armor. I do like the idea of the stuff. It could have been interesting if, like, its reliance on that new ability could have tied, and then failure of that ability could have tied into this desire to keep upgrading kind of thing. I mean, I'm not sure how they would have done that, but
yeah, that would have been an interesting angle to explore. But ultimately, the film doesn't do that. It just it often just lumbers along like a big Jurassic Park dinosaur, and it's just an excuse to waste some time with characters shooting it, even though when those same characters already know gunfire doesn't do anything to it.
Well, to be fair, they did set it on fire.
Eventually reacts.
I think at that point they were trying to escalate the situation with a couple of claymores and on fire kind of thing.
Yeah.
That scene where someone jumps on it, that was meant to be a tense moment, and I just found myself laughing because this upgrade thing, it was just flailing its arms around. And I'm thinking, you shouldn't last 5 seconds with that, but you're just going, no.
For me, it was just sad once Fugitive died, because I knew, like, for the rest of the movie, we would just be getting this CG Predator, and the CG did look good in some scenes more than others. Others, it looked like it was a bit more rushed, but
that when it bites the guy's head off. And
it looks down.
Yeah, they were.
Did either of you two get the feeling, because it bites him upside down and then it sort of looks up? I don't know if this was deliberate, but that came across very much like the first attack scene in Alien 3. You remember when the alien sort of smiles at the camera or hisses at it and it's got covered in blood? That was actually, I didn't feel the effects was too great in that, because you have these very almost, again, there's that word, cartoonish Disney-like yellow eyes, and they didn't look real. The rest of the effects work, I agree with you. It was a lot of it I was actually fine with, but that was one of those moments where I thought, oh, that looks fake.
Yeah, no, the yellow eyes, some scenes, I was wondering if they were practical, and others it was obvious they were CG for both the Fugitive and the upgrade. But yeah, if there's any reason beyond just I kind of like the concept of team ups sometimes when it's done right, that I would have wanted the Fugitive Predators, or the Emissary Predators, I guess they've been coined, is because those were just other characters that ADI made that I don't get to see on screen, and I'm like, where is that? And we see that now with so many reshoots. Studios they question themselves. Like Rogue One, we had it.
To be fair, the finished Rogue One was awesome. I'm going to say that.
I still what I heard of the original one, how it was a more like gritty war film, and they had more of a ground combat. Like some of the best scenes in the Rogue One trailer are not in the film, in my opinion. Like
a lot of those were filmed just as individual scenes, though. They just filmed random things they could think of.
And can I say, I'm getting sick of that. I'm getting sick of marketing not being representative of what is in the film. So much of this movie, like, yes, we've seen it before, like Predators when they had all the lasers on Royce. Yeah, that was kind of deceptive marketing, but that was one shot. Like everything else that was in the trailers was in the film, but this one, there were so many scenes that were in the trailers that just weren't in the movie at all. Like the ship crashing down on the lake, like Roy playing with the Kajad device thing. The whole APC sequence, which was still used a lot in the marketing, the come and get us motherfucker scene, like the do you know what my job description is between Casey and Traeger, the big explosion in the daytime, like there was so much that was in the trailers. If you actually look, that's just totally missing from the movie. And I get that sometimes marketing kind of has to work with different things before the finished cut of the film, and that's fine.
Pretty much.
But you still gotta kind of have it represent like what's been shot. Like once we're getting to like 40%, 50% of the trailer is stuff that's not in the movie, it just feels a bit off to me.
I guess it doesn't really bother me as much because I expect it. I expect there to be deleted scenes and stuff like that. And just from a movie archaeology point of view, this might be our only exposure to that footage. So I don't know. It don't fuss me.
I do think they could use another cut. I think that would actually, given the fact that this movie has been doing not as well as they'd hoped, and it was the most expensive Predator film, over $80 million. That's almost up there with Alien Covenant budget, or the highest budget for a Predator movie. And it's made $24 million domestically in its first weekend. I would expect a big second weekend drop. The two times I saw it in my local theaters, the theater was almost empty both times in the opening weekend.
I've seen a lot of pictures online of empty theaters.
So I think a way to get at least the home release to do well would be to have multiple cuts of the film or have an extended cut, just like they did with the Alien movies back when that came out in the anthology.
I'm expecting that, yeah.
Well, the problem is Shane Black was asked about it and said that the effects were unfinished and it would cost them money to finish off the date.
But he still seemed open to it. It's
not up to him in the end, though, is it? Is Fox going to want to spend more money
It is
on
Fox.
What looks like a sinking ship at the minute?
Yeah, but I will say, even if they did the minimal effects, kind of like we saw with the Alien Resurrection alternate cut, I think it would be a selling point for the home release. I think if they have a bare bones release for this on Blu-ray, it's not going to do well.
No. And it seems like that might be the case given how it's out in November?
Yeah, it's a quick release.
I suspect they will include deleted scenes, but they're not going to produce an alternative cut.
Which I think is really unfortunate. I think even if we don't like necessarily the concepts that are going to be in it, if we don't like the hybrid and stuff, maybe it may be a more coherent vision, with it being the original vision. I'd be more interested in it from that kind of angle.
And that was the thing with Robert Rodriguez. From my understanding, they just told him, do whatever you want. He was saying there was a lot of creative freedom he had. And this always goes kind of back to the question, even with Ridley Scott. Well, do we give Ridley Scott all this creative freedom because I have some of the problems with the decisions he's made, but at the same time, would I have rather seen just a straight up sequel to Prometheus than Alien Covenant, or what Covenant more of the product of Ridley's vision clashing with studio meddling? And is that what we're getting with this one? Is it too much of conflicting visions for the franchise? Like, even though I may have had problems with Prometheus 2 or with Shane Black's original cut for this, maybe I would have just enjoyed them more, even with my problems, because they would have been more coherent.
Bringing that up, then, the thing that nearly fucking ruined this film for me was the ending. And that obviously looked like something that had been brought up.
The fans are going to love this.
But
yeah.
I just expect that to be something John Davis came up with to fucking, so another hand in the pot, to set up some sequels. I hated that ending so much. I mean, the film had been comical, but at that point,
it was a legitimate facepalm moment.
Yeah, and you know what? The fucking pod, I don't know if any of you noticed this, the fucking pod that the thing came out of, this stupid Predator killer, had on it in English, Pod 3.
What?
Did it?
Yeah.
What, engraved in the metal, you mean?
Well, it was written on it, painted on it, whatever, but it was in English on the thing.
Could it have been something the lab staff painted on it then?
I doubt it.
Maybe, but it was so weird. Like when the thing just goes on its arm and it starts like like nanotech, like straight up from Infinity War, like pretty much magic, just appearing out of thin air, like.
It looked like the fucking Iron Man nanobot suit thing that he devised in the third one. I can't remember its name now.
Just Infinity War.
No, I mean, Marvel Universe, they had a name for the fucking technology. I can't remember what it was.
Nanotech.
No, it was a specific project. But we're getting off point.
Not to worry.
But fucking hell, how bad was
whatever.
that? Come on.
It was
how
ridiculous.
Awful was that?
With the robotic dreadlocks too. Like.
It was what it looked like that rightly makes people call bullshit, because it looks like a fan film with a mega $1 million budget. That scene does.
No, because even a fan film would do something that ridiculous.
It's the kind of... It looks like, as you say, like an Iron Man thing with dreadlocks. It looks like a parody when you have shoulder cannons come out. They look like battleship guns, and they got like 900 targeting lasers. It looks like a parody of a Predator.
It looked like a fucking Kenner figure, is what.
And then he's like, I hope it comes in.
Yes, that's it. I was on the bus, and I was thinking to myself, it looks like I got in touch with the people who made the Kenner figures back in the 90s, and they something crazy, draw us up something, we'll see.
And then
it looked exactly like a Kenner figure.
And
he's
it
like,
looked so cheap
that's my new suit. I hope it comes in a 42 long. And I'm like, oh god, like it was just so.
The dialogue was so. And see, the part I disliked more than because really it's the realization of that suit. It doesn't in any way look realistic.
The effects look really cheap.
Yeah, but the thing I disliked about that was like, not just as this, he's just like an ordinary sniper dude. He's not like Dutch, or he's not a commander, but he's suddenly got put in charge of this operation himself, and he's brought his little in and he's given him a job, and that really made me cringe. Where it was like the kid turned around and said, "Hey, Dad." That really, really came across very like a Saturday morning cartoon. That's what I said. It's another thing that if this was a cartoon, it would have. It's like his little kid on to do, and like the next episode, they're going to have like a little robot dinosaur running around, and it's going to have a little funny voice. That kind of stuff. The actual suit, I think they just did that as a way to say, you know what, we need a visual effects here, a little kicker. I think nobody would have minded it if it was like the pod activated or something, but instead, it was a red herring, something was going to come out of there. And it wasn't something physical. It was like it would start transmitting data. It would like give them a way to devise their own stuff based on scientific data that the Predators have. So
it should have been Arnold.
It
should have been Arnold. Just comes out of the pod and he goes, "I'm back."
71-year-old veteran who's pulling a pension.
Honestly, what were you guys expecting at that point?
I was expecting Arnold. He should have popped out of there and just said, "I'm back."
Well, the funny
thing,
the
credits.
You know what? Me and Mr. H were sat there, and he's going, "Is it Arnold?" I went, "I fucking hope it's not Arnold." And then I get this fucking thing. I wish it were fucking Danny Glover or Royce. Oh, shout!
It could have been Gary Busey. It could have been him.
What? His top half.
Keys. Yeah, he's like Darth Maul down from like the hips below. He's got cybernetic predator legs. That's why we never saw the torso. It got beamed up in that scene.
Speaking of Royce and Predators, the novel gives them a shout out, actually.
Oh, it does?
Really?
Yeah, I'm only about where it's escaped, because as of recording, the book came out today. So I'm just at the point where the fugitives escape in the lab. But they shout out to Predators with reports that they've had unconfirmed reports that the Predators have been abducting people.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's interesting.
Oh, they don't mention him by name then?
No, just...
Okay.
I wonder.
Clearly, a reference.
I wonder how, given how much we liked, at least compared to this movie, the prequel novel, I wonder if this is going to go off the original script or if they altered it to match with the reshoots or how that's going to be.
There's not been any drastic differences as of yet, considering they brought on the second writer out of nowhere. I imagine he was brought on to deal with the reshoot stuff.
Mm.
But I'll find out over the next day or two.
We also have the art book, which should be interesting in the making of the movie. So I'm wondering if they have the concept designs for the other hybrid predators that are missing from the film.
I hope so.
Probably.
So as of this point, we don't really know any behind-the-scenes stories. It's just bits of rumours about studio interference and Black's unhappiness.
Well, his last comments make him seem like he's not interested in doing another one.
Or any franchise stuff at the minute. It sounds like he just
Yeah.
wants to go off and make a little...
No, because fans railed on him for Iron Man 3 and now this, so I'm sure he's not really
I don't
too
blame him.
wanting to go back to big franchise movie.
No, I don't blame him at all.
Well, his better stuff is his own original stuff anyway.
Oh, for sure. The Nice Guys was great, and that was the thing, like, I felt kind of a parallel with Alien Covenant. Like, I just watched The Martian. I was like, oh, shit, Ridley's back on it. Like, Alien Covenant's going to be great. That let me down. And I had just watched The Nice Guys shortly before this, and I was like, wow, Shane Black's awesome. Like, this will be an interesting new take. And then this let me down. So
You jinx it for yourself, man.
I think this feels like the Alien 3 of the Predator franchise.
I think that's kind of insulting Alien 3, to be honest. But, I mean, like Alien 3, a lot of people, when it first came out, had a big problem with it. But eventually it came out with another cut that people liked a lot more. So I hope this follows suit with that.
Honestly, this felt like, and a lot of people have brought up this comparison, but it honestly did feel like Shane Black or Decker, they'd like 10 years ago, they challenged themselves and they'd gone, you know what, if I did an A-Team remake, how would it go? And they'd like half finished it and they got given this project and they're going, oh, I had that A-Team script. Oh yeah, I'll drag some of that. And they tried to combine, like even one of those characters on the Loonies, they had an Irish accent, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that
But
was...
it really felt, that you could totally see the parallels with that. And this has proven, like it or loathe it, it's Marmite. This is the covenant of the Predator fandom now.
I think it's even
hugely
lower.
divisive.
Everything near enough sits at about 50 at mixed. So on our front page, the highest rating is 3 out of 5, followed by, in terms of percentage, so 3 out of 5 is 32%. Then more positive is 4 out of 5 at 17%. And then also at 17% is 2 out of 5. And then if we go on the boards, again, the highest rating is 3 out of 5.
Really? Because there are some people who genuinely love this.
Yeah, well, it really.
I mean,
fits
I'm
between
not one
the
of
two.
those who. Yeah, I'm not one of those who like genuinely hate it. I'm just like, it's not what it should have been, especially after that many years where they had the opportunity and clearly the budget to polish this so much better. But it's, it is what it is. It's just not what a Predator film should be.
Yeah.
Like I said, the board is medium to start with, and then the next highest is 4 out of 5, and then 5 out of 5 and 2 out of 5 are tied again, with 1 out of 5 literally 1% below the others. So, and then even the professionals. So IMDb slightly higher at 6.1 with the user ratings. On Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, it's sitting at about 50% 5 in terms of audience score.
Metacritic, it's 49, and user Metacritic is 4.8.
And then the lowest
it's
is
not.
Well, even the average rating on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics, even though it's 33% approval rating, the actual average number rating is 5.1. So it's sitting pretty much smack on in the middle. 50% love it, 50% hate it. Very divisive.
It's definitely got a lot of negative word of mouth. It's not sitting well with a lot of people.
Well, we've bashed it critiqued it for about an hour or so.
Yeah, there are things which are likeable about it.
Let's get on to that, because as far as I'm concerned, the saving grace of this film was the characters. It was the loonies. It was the humour. It was their one-liners. As much as people, yes, the Predator, it wasn't a comedy, but it was still comedic. I don't care, because for me, the thing that carried me through this film was just how much fun I was having with these guys, with these personalities. And with the jokes, I mean, fucking hell, when the Aardvark gag, I sat there crying with laughter at that just because of the delivery. I mean, for most part, a lot of the early jokes are what they are in the script, and I didn't necessarily find them funny in the script, but on screen with this cast, I was having a blast. I was genuinely enjoying all the comedic tones and stuff of this, and maybe I'm a part of this Marvel problem. Is
I thought it was funny, but I had seen, like I said, The Nice Guys, and that movie had me in stitches. Like, that movie was hilarious. And this one, it was kind of like half the jokes landed for me. But I don't know. Maybe it was just because I was expecting a different tone from a Predator movie. And it's funny you bring up the Marvel thing, because a lot of people, a lot of people loved Thor Ragnarok.
I did. I loved it.
I did. I really. That was the best.
That's the only Thor film I genuinely enjoy.
One of the things people who didn't like it complain about was the tone was off compared to the first two movies, because it was just joke after joke after joke after joke, and like nothing was taken seriously in the entire movie, and it made for a really fun ride. Yeah, but compared to the first two Thor movies, it kind of like there was no tension there.
But see, for me, the first two Thor movies didn't have the tension they needed either. I just was very underwhelmed. I was very underwhelmed with both the first two, whereas this, I could tell it wanted badly to be like a Guardians of the Galaxy film, but the tone within the context, it just, as a film, it worked for me. It felt very, Deadpool, Guardians of the Galaxy love child.
Maybe we're at this point where the comedic stuff and the lighter stuff is doing better. I mean, fucking the world's depressing enough as it is. Escapism having a lighter tone, maybe that's
I think you can have good escapism. I mean, people still love horror movies, and there are moments of comedy in Predator 2 and Predators, and I don't think they detract from the film. It's all about the right balance.
Well, except for that one, it's bitch raping time, and the other guy looks at him, he's like, even the other character is going, what do you mean? And you're left at that point going, what, why didn't
oh come on, that was that funny. That was the theater laughed out loud.
It was pointless.
It was funny because it made no sense.
Well, they shouldn't have put that in there.
How did the theatres react to the humour in your showings?
So the premiere, they were laughing plenty. I mean, it's just, people are having a good time. It's a world premiere. But for the two local screenings I saw, it was like I said, like half the jokes were the theater. I mean, the theaters were pretty empty too, like I said. But half the jokes the audience was laughing, and the other half they were just kind of like, like chuckles. So
I for my showings, it was more hit than miss, which was how I find it as well.
For my showing, there was like 7 people in there. But I think I was the only one. I didn't hear anyone else laughing. I laughed, but I didn't hear anyone. I work in a cinema now, so I got to see it for free. But all the screenings when I've had a day on the road to where I'm at work, when Predator's been showing, hardly anyone has been buying tickets, and I have asked the other member of the staff, what's it like for evening tickets, and they're just like saying nobody's going to see this. So that I'm not getting any reception of just even casual viewers having this desire to watch it. But when I was in there, it was kind of dead.
I have to wonder if the hype dissipated just because it took so long for this to come out with the reshoots. I mean, this was supposed to be out in February.
I don't think so. I think when people go, if they want to see a film, they'll go and see it whenever it comes out.
I don't want to really talk about it because I don't think there's really anything. I don't want to get involved in this conversation, but I do think that a combo of massively mixed reviews following the premiere and the critic showings, and all this stuff with the sex offender really damaged it. I think the negative word of mouth, and they say there's no such thing as bad press, but there is when it comes to sex offender stuff.
definitely.
I think that made a huge impact on the film.
I think it had an impact. I don't know how extensive.
Yeah, I don't think it was huge because I think Fox, I mean, they did the only thing there was to do. They cut the scene. It was just really terrible timing with the day of the premiere. Like when I was there, that's what the press was asking Olivia Munn about. I mean, she wasn't doing interviews, but it just made for kind of a strange vibe there. Shane Black wasn't on the carpet either. Like he was in LA the next week, but
apparently he was in tears in his fucking office or hotel room or whatever.
Where did you hear that?
Not Gary Busey. Jake Busey made a statement recently, today, about it all, and the timing and everything, and he said that Shane Black was in tears that day.
I can believe it.
But even then, I don't want to. No, we're not going into this.
It doesn't matter. It probably had an impact. I don't think
it was a massive impact.
I think that kind of stuff is because all Twitter, there was so much about this angle.
The problem was this movie was so high budget. I mean, Predators only did a little bit better. It made slightly over $30 million domestically in its first weekend, I believe. But that movie was made for half the budget. Yeah. So
anyway,
Predator master plans.
Okay. So we've been being really negative. Aaron, I know you were saying you wanted to talk about things we liked. The Shuriken was cool to see outside of an AvP movie, and I really like the fact, I don't know why one of Traeger's men just threw it into the air. Like, I have no idea why that happened.
I think he was supposed to have like sensed the predator, heard the predator or something.
But Traeger, he's like, it's gonna come back. You gotta catch it. But that kind of reminded me, like, some people have made the argument like, oh, the Predator just throws it in an arc and it comes back. And I've always been like, no, the Shuriken and the disc, they're like smart devices. Like, they'll return to your hand, which is why he was like pointing to the gauntlet. He's like, oh, you need a control device to retrieve it without it cutting off your hand. And it cuts off his hand, and then he just executes the dude, which was a little weird for a commander to just do there.
I didn't understand that.
It was cool to see the Shuriken.
You know what? I love Traeger. I thought it was fucking brilliant as a bad guy. It was comical about it and everything, but it was just so fucking charming, and I love to hate him.
No, his character was funny. Like,
it was a great performance by the actor, memorable personality, but as a character, he has zero understanding of good management skills.
Traeger probably
he's really bad at his job, but he's a memorable character.
Yeah. Traeger probably made me laugh more than any other character in that movie. Like,
I loved the hunter gag, the predator hunter gag.
Oh, what? That was weird. That kept on coming up.
I thought it was like
it's so on point. They're not wrong.
Oh, about the sound. Yeah, but whenever Olivia Munn's character, she gets on set, oh, well, it's not a predator. I'm thinking they're the same thing.
They're not.
They are. A predator by nature will have to, even if it's a scavenger, it will have to hunt and trap. That's what a predator will do.
It's not
I
doing
thought
it
it was
food.
like, okay.
I really liked that because I thought it was on point, and I'm glad it came up twice, and so it was semi-running. You know what? Fuck you guys. Fuck you guys.
But cool. I will say one really good thing about this. It didn't canonise the word Yorkshire. I'm really grateful for that.
It very nearly did, apparently. So, according to some of the test screenings that I've heard about, it opened with a Star Wars scroll.
Oh God.
Really? Oh dear.
In space, no less.
I don't know if it was quite that bad, but
wow.
Apparently it said stuff like, this bit annoyed me because it said Hubble captured it, but said like they'd received an audio recording or a data recording or whatever bollocks from space, and the team at Harvard University had spent all this money translating it, which also gets a shout out kind of in the actual film with the
when they get to the quarry.
Yeah, and it said like, and these words were deciphered, kill, blah blah blah, Yautja.
Oh, I'm glad that's cut.
Yeah, I'm so glad that's cut.
I don't mind.
I'm not a fan of that name.
I hate Yautja.
I don't mind it.
It's just something about it that rubbed me the wrong way.
Most Predator fans embrace that
because
Yautja.
for so long that was all there was the Perry stuff.
Yeah, that's all there was. Yeah.
I hate it.
But
I can't fucking stand it.
It was cool to see the Shuriken in action and him slicing people up with it. I did like the Lex Spear as a apologist for AvP. Like that was cool to see. Another Xenomorph shout out.
Yeah.
I wish we'd have seen the other cabinets because there was more than those two. You could sort of
Was
see,
there?
you could sort of see them in the background.
They should have had the Predator 2 mask because that was probably retrieved.
And the pistol as well. I would have loved to have seen the pistol.
Yeah.
From AvP.
But again, they had them just like in display cabinets. They didn't have them, in secured things where they could, or under analysis on microscopes or whatever. It just looked like a massive museum. It shouldn't have been that. But what was weird is I actually like the AvP, reference. It's a neat little cameo.
So unintrusive, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is a little weird that they've literally got a whole segment of alien tail there with alien DNA, and this is canonizing the AvP things, and yet it means in the future Weyland-Yutani are desperate to get alien DNA, and they've literally had it since 2004.
That was the government, not the company. But I guess in AVPR we see that they're kind of working together because, well, I don't know if that was OWLF or not.
Oh yeah, there was this thing going around, wasn't it, that where the same actress who played Miss Yutani was apparently one of the technicians
in the labs, at the end.
And we never. It was a big thing about, that probably means there's some kind of, but there was nothing.
That was always reaching. That was. It's just she's a local Vancouver actress.
Oh yeah, because they filmed both in Vancouver.
Yeah, I'm a big Stargate fan, and I noticed a couple of regulars from Stargate because that was also filmed in Vancouver in this film actually.
Yeah, but Stargate isn't linked to the credit, whereas
I'm just saying that they are local Vancouver talent, and they were in the film like she was.
But yeah, I mean, I get what you were saying earlier too, because I did want to reply to it earlier, Eric, how they changed the OWLF organization, which could kind of briefly be seen in AVPR. Like if you look at the monitors that Colonel Stevens is looking at, it says OWLF on it. But they changed that to Project Stargazer, which they talk about a little bit in the prequel novel. But yeah, like I've never liked that either when they turn Weyland-Yutani into United Systems Military, or even in like the Terminator franchise where they get rid of Cyberdyne and it's just the military. It's like there's so much more interesting things there. So
they want to go bigger in scale, but it's like they jinxed it by doing that, and the ultimate portrayal is worse than.
Well, they even say in the prequel novel like OWLF was better funded than Stargazer. So
well, whatever it was, it didn't work for me.
But I liked the Loonies. I thought they were funny. I thought they were good characters. I've liked Thomas Jane a lot from The Expanse, so it was cool to see him in this. But I think there wasn't enough character development for anybody. I liked McKenna.
I thought he worked as a lead.
Yeah. No, I thought he was up there with like Brody. Like he was.
He came across as believably professional. I mean, it was a little generic, but he came across as the more believable one, except in the early scenes where he's being pushed along for his interview, and he's acting as though he's got like elite ninja skills. And I'm thinking, you're just a sniper. You're not like someone who could take on an entire facility of dudes. You've got your skill set. You're not like Dutch. You just keep to your own strengths.
Yeah.
But, I liked the Looney characters, but as I said earlier, it was one of those things where it's like they've got several key elements, and clearly the Loonies were one of them, but they would have had the same story without the Loonies in it. And it's like there is that scene where you have Thomas James and what's his name, Peel, and their characters, and they basically suicide one another. And you're meant to feel something from it, but it didn't have any impact for me. And that's a shame because they do come across as like, living characters sort of thing. You're laughing along with them for the duration of the thing, but when they're not there, you don't feel their loss.
The one with the cards, what was his name again? Who he did like the card tricks?
That was Alfie Allen, that was Lynch.
Yeah, he was probably given less development than any of them. Like... He only had a few lines, I think.
Yeah, he got the least amount of time. I mean, I don't think the lack of development bothered me so much, because it's not like anybody outside of Dylan, I guess, really had any sort of arc in the first one. They were mostly personalities. And in this one, it feels like they were mostly personalities as well, and that worked. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you had, like, Blaine got killed, and you had that scene where there was some gravitas to it, where Mac was just out in the night, and he was just like, had that scene where he talks about, I'm going to cut your name into him. And you got this sense that you'd have a history together, that you had an impact from that death. Whereas in this one, there was a scene where you were meant to have an emotional reaction, but it was just, you just didn't fit. It just fell flat. You just got on to the next bit of the adventure. You just didn't feel anything. Whereas you had, like, another thing here, as a more valid comparison would be Billy. And you had that scene where he just turns around, he's decided to face, like, the demons of his ancestors and just yell out in the background. You're not even seeing him get killed, but there is an act there. You feel it. That would have been the more direct comparison, whereas in here, they shoot one another and that's it. You're just on to the next.
I think that's a victim of the pacing. At the end of the day,
very much.
I think as quick as the pacing was, I guess, thematic stuff in terms of some of their deaths was obvious enough that I got it regardless of the brisk pace. So, for example, Nebraska's death, he was there because he tried to kill himself, and he ends killing himself, but doing it and helping out the cause, I guess, with taking the ship down. I really liked Coyle and Baxley's little double suicide thing. I mean, yeah, it doesn't linger on it long enough. None of the deaths are really lingered on long enough. But I did like that moment. I was gutted that they went out.
And yet there's one important character who many people, including myself, didn't even realise died in a very weird way.
Oh, yeah, Traeger.
It's something I mentioned earlier off the air, was that his death was slightly thematic to his thing anyway, because he's killed by the very technology that he's trying so desperately to get hold of. Again, yes, it's not lingered on long enough. It's blink and you miss it. Me and Ridgetop both thought he shot Casey Brackett the first time we watched it, but
which would have been interesting.
But there's themes in that way. But yeah, I can't argue with the pacing not letting any of that sink in. I can't argue with that at all.
Yeah, any sort of poetic irony is lost if the audience doesn't even realise it's happened.
Yeah, Casey it took me 2 viewings to see what really happened because it was so quick, and Casey just yells out to him, but we don't know why. And he just turns his head and blows his own head off with the Predator gun he's using. I'm like, okay then. But yeah, it was just so quick, and for a character who's like kind of sinister, it just seemed a little too sudden for his demise.
So something I wanted to ask you specifically, Xenomorphin, was about Rory. So obviously a big deal was made over his him being on the spectrum, the autistic spectrum. It somehow granted him super understanding of stuff. I can't say I have massive knowledge of this kind of thing, but I thought you might have a more unique insight than myself or Ridgetop about this, being as you are also on the spectrum. So what did you think of Rory?
I've got Asperger's. I've not on the same. He seems to suffer on a more extreme version of it than I do, because he's got the version where clearly loud sounds disorientate, causing, but he's literally in a fetal position with his hands on his ears when there's an alarm that goes off. That is a thing which happens with some children, adults alike, when they're on that part of the spectrum. It came across relatively believable for me. I will say I did quite like the chess scene, where the bullies sort of, they knock the chess pieces over, and you can see him. He's got a compulsion to put them back, but not just put them back, but they're exactly the same pieces. And that was actually quite an effective scene for me, because it's not something I would do, because I wouldn't have that photographic memory, but it is the kind of thing I could see someone with that condition if they do have that memory retention, I could totally buy them doing that. And it conveyed to you that he thinks analytically and logically, and he's got a thing about patterns. And I thought that was, I'm not going to say masterstroke of genius, but I actually thought Shane Black, the way he worked that in was really well done. When it started to go the rails for me was when you had the child, like the stuff about him drawing the maps, and like he could have worked out things from the patterns, because we're very good with patterns. We can sometimes be rubbish at doing mathematics, but we've got things for numbers and patterns. I could buy him working out the maps, things like that. It was him being able to deconstruct the entire Predator language without an equivalent of a Rosetta Stone plot device, or if there was, I missed it. That I was starting to go, no, he's got Asperger's, but he's not going to save the day. We're not superheroes. It did bug me a little bit when I could tell what Shane Black was doing, because apparently he's got, I think it's Tourette's or something himself. Yeah. I could tell what he was doing when he was having, it wasn't just Brackett, I think it was somebody else, but they made they said 3 times, all next step in ever. And I thought,
yeah, it was Brackett.
As someone who has got it myself, I think it made me cringe a bit, because yeah, we've got our strengths, and sometimes you have people who've got this condition and they've actually used it to create amazing careers for themselves, say as musicians or whatever. We can be very creative, and it's actually, they got a fortune by doing it. And you ask them, if you had the opportunity to not have it, would you do it? And they'd say, no, because if I never had it, I wouldn't have the perspective I do, and I wouldn't work the same way as I do mentally. But most sufferers of it, you ask us if we had the opportunity to never have it again tomorrow, we totally take you up on that opportunity. We are not going to be able to figure out a completely, like you gave me something in Spanish or German, I wouldn't know how to decipher that. And you got the kid figuring out everything about this, and he is literally being made into this. I can see Shane Black wanting to make him a positive role model, but giving him this whole other thing, and literally he is, at the end of the film, he's employed by the US government to do things that their leading scientists have not been able to do. And apparently the Predators want to weaponize autism. That stuff, I'm not going to say I was offended by it, but it did make me go, oh, what are you doing? Because it's as someone who's got it myself, and a lot of other people I've known who've got it themselves, they're going to be going, it's nice to see someone with that being put in they're being shown in a positive light. And even things like the dog comes up to him and it barks and it makes him cringe and stuff. Again, I'm not like that, but a lot of people, they do have that. Things like that, it made him believable. But then it went off into, like, he's the cartoon sidekick who's going to solve the day. And then literally the Predator is like, he's more of a warrior than any of you. And again, I'm not going to say it's distasteful, but it did rub me the wrong way a little bit, because it just made me think you're going overboard as a writer when you're trying to do that to a character. It is very believable and relatable up to that point. And I think it's nice to have an audience who would typically, they might not be interested in dramas. They might not have any interest. They might just be into action movies. And it's nice to see a character included. They're not for the sake of, I want representation, but they're just included. Like, it's nice to see a gay character, or like, an interracial couple included, just because you might have them having an interesting perspective within a story. They might add something to the story. Don't just put them in for the sake of it, but they might have an interesting perspective. And I think it would have been interesting to see him work out things like the map that he does work out. Maybe he works out how a device would function in a way that somebody else, he would be able to think outside the box, which we're very good at, in a way that one of their leading scientists might not have been able to. He might have been able to slide something in a certain way. If you're doing a Hellraiser film, an autistic person would be really good to put in there because it revolves around puzzle boxes. But when you're having them go beyond that, and you're literally having people going, no, autism is the next evolutionary step in humankind, you, as someone who's got it, you do you don't facepalm, but you do cringe a bit, because he was just going a little bit too far the other way, and it was like he was pushing, not like an agenda, but you know what I mean? He's trying to make it into something it isn't, and there are definite downsides to having the condition. If predators want to have Asperger warriors, they're welcome to it. I'm sure being socially awkward is something they don't give a shit about. But at the same time, you have this predator that's the upgrade, and clearly they figured out how to do neural interfaces, because the thing doesn't need a mask on to A, breathe, and B, it's got all the head-up display symbology. It's seeing it through its eyes. If their thing is they want to be able to analyze things in a very analytical, logical way, they've already got that capacity. So I don't see why predators would want to have that ability. That was something that made no sense to me, and it's something I could understand Shane Black in thinking, these characters they're not seen enough. They're not played to their strengths as characters. Let's do something with that. That could be interesting. And it could, but he is shown having downsides. But it's like at the beginning with the bullies, and it's kind of like it's something that's brought into it when it's useful to the plot, but then at other times it's not, and you're just left with it thinking he's the little child genius, and hey, autism's the next evolutionary step, so therefore everyone that's got autism should not just be, shielded from bullies and that, which, yeah, that's a positive message to put in a film, but we're not all going to be, idiot savants that can solve billions of mathematical equations, because we're not. Some can, but it's when it got to that point where the child becomes a Deus ex machina.
Yeah, which is the crux of it, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, and that was one of those things that just it didn't make sense for me. It was nice having the character there, but yeah, there was that line where, as someone with a condition, I could go, no, it's gone too much over the other direction.
And they severely toned down his interest in language in the actual film as well.
Did they?
Yeah, I mean, in the script and in the novel, they have him, making a point of knowing all these other languages he speaks in other languages throughout.
Right.
Throughout, those bits as well.
So if they'd have included that, I could, because what I will say is that sometimes we will find a subject, we get interested in it. And from the perspective of like your original, if you saw me and I suddenly got interested in, say, here's one, I was writing a fictional character and she was Russian. So I just, from my perspective, I very casually got interested in a little bit about, Russian, not just like, not doing the language, but Russian culture, Russian this, Russian that and the other. And I basically taught myself a huge amount about it. From somebody else's perspective, stuff like that would be seen as absolutely obsessive. But from my perspective, it's just like, I'm devouring this information because this information is what I need. It's linking to that. It's linking to that. So I will also find out about that. So if I'd have known that about this character, him having a existing interest in languages and already knowing about language, that would have been the key for me to be going, oh, I could understand he might have this pre-existing thing where he is totally obsessed about languages, and he might look at the predator language in a way which somebody else might not have done because he would think back to other things he's learned.
So that would have been more believable for you.
Yeah, without that being in the film, someone who's got that tendency to be obsessive about not just being analytical, but obsessive about finding as much information as you can, and from his perspective, he wouldn't have even understood how that came across, but that would have made sense because that would have pushed it into that. I could see how that might have come about, But even then, it would have had to have been written in a way where it didn't have that I want to call bullshit on it feeling. But I think if they'd have included that would have helped a great deal to sell me on that concept, definitely.
I think the movie showed that he had a photographic memory, which I don't believe is any more common for those on the spectrum as it is for those who are not.
No, not to my knowledge. No. What happened? I don't recall him being
just the chess scene where all the chess pieces
Well, I mentioned
knocked off and he puts them all right back where they were.
Yeah. Now that, as I said, that isn't typically common, but if he's a character who does have that, I could totally see Asperger's would make him want to put them back in exactly the same order that most people who've got that condition, no, we won't do it. If we had the knowledge, yeah, we'd feel compelled to do it, but we would not be able to do that. But it was a nice scene. It helped to convey how that character thought.
I really liked the music during that scene, actually. It was one of the few moments that sticks out to me as the original music, which was that scene and the later scene when McKenna's making the jump and it's got this sort of overblown, cheesy sort of hero music that I actually quite liked.
So now that you bring up the music, what did you guys think of the score in general compared to the other films?
With those two being the only original bits I can remember, I mean... I think that's a bit of a problem with the Predator stuff. It relies a lot on the old themes, which isn't necessarily a problem because it's done consistently throughout the films. So rather than there being film-specific themes, they feel like series-specific themes. So I have no problem with that stuff coming up. I mean, even with there's only one track available to listen to for free online, which I think was the opening sequence. I think they've released 3 tracks in an EP and the sound tracks coming out later this month.
Yeah, that one you can get on Amazon, and I believe on the 26th the full soundtrack drops. But it didn't really stand out to me either. And I think even the last film, who I believe was done by John Debney, I thought that was excellent. And yes, it had a lot of callbacks and a lot of themes that were very reminiscent of the original Predator, but it did its own thing too. There's a lot of really eerie atmospheric tracks with that. And just like Predator 2 had repeats of some of the themes from the first movie, but it also had themes like Them Bones that were just really memorable for that film.
I loved the Predator 2 score.
Oh yeah, that one was great.
It was one of those. I'm not a fan of Predator 2 in general. I love the creature parts, but the score it's one of those things. It was a definite improvement on Sylvester's original. I really love the Predator 2 score.
To be honest, I don't really pick up on them until I get a chance to actually listen to them in isolation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to buy it because I want to listen to it. But like with Covenant, to me, I think Covenant's soundtrack is probably my second favourite of the series.
Yeah, Covenant, regardless of how I felt to the movie, that score was way good. And that was... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I didn't appreciate that until I could just sit and listen to it.
See, I did. Like, even when I saw the Alien Day footage on that, and they had brief snippets of the new score, it sounded so good. And I couldn't wait to hear more of it. With this score, it was just like nothing really stood out as memorable other than the callbacks. But I will have to give it its own listen and give it its own due. But it didn't quite catch me like the scores from the other Predator films did.
I would say I had that feeling with Alien 3 because it was the initial and ending credit sequences which always stuck in my mind musically, and I wanted to hear the rest of it. But when I got around to listening to it, I fell in love with the Alien 3 soundtrack.
That's my favourite.
That turned out to be. It's actually a weird case of it's like Back to the Future, Star Wars. That's at least half of the emotional impact you get from those films, especially Back to the Future. Alien 3 was a weird case of a film that had a fantastic musical score, but when the film itself sort of, it definitely has its moments, a lot of them the dramatic moments, but the film itself, it always sort of underwhelmed me as a whole. Yeah, I love the music from it. And I think this is... see, you mentioned Covenant. I haven't listened to the score for Covenant on its own. but I will be doing it, and I'm sure when I do, there's going to be a lot of ones that I go, oh yeah, that was from that scene, that. Because I when I listened to Prometheus, the score from that, I only remember the initial credit sequence and that sequence where the telescope's chair rises out of the floor. But when I listen to the soundtrack in isolation, there's a lot of individual bits like debris and engineers and stuff like that are really dark, evocative atmosphere. But I don't realise them when I'm watching the film. And I think the same applied for here. I'd forgotten about the part with the music that played along with the chess pieces. Now you mention it, I do remember that part. I like that one. But most of the rest of it, I just remember the emulations of Silvestri's score, especially with like the jungle drums and stuff, which I think we all commented on when we were doing the Tom Clancy's Wildlands with the Predator cameo. They're those nice Predator drums which happen when you're going into the Predator zone, and little things like that, those little musical cues. But yeah, it's one of those scores where I'm going to have to find a copy, sit down. I'm probably going to go, oh yeah, I really like it, but hardly any of it stuck in my mind. But that doesn't mean to say because it's a bad score. It just means it didn't stick in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know we've talked about a lot of things that don't make sense in this movie, but I have to bring up two last things. Otherwise, I'm going to regret it. First thing, when the loonies make their escape from the research base and they do the get to the choppers line, what are all those motorcycles just doing there, ready to go?
No.
They look so CG as well.
Second thing, and I told this to you guys before the podcast, the ship crash. In the beginning, it looks like the ship is crashing over Mexico, like it's close to the ground. It hits the cliff. After it hits the cliff, the Predator ejects out of the pod. But later in the movie, when they find the ship in this quarry, and I mean they fly to it by helicopter, and the loonies follow the Predator dog to it. It couldn't have been all the way down in Mexico. So the ship crash location, which is also weird that they didn't show that when we saw it in the trailers, like. That was kind of like, wait, what happened with that? So, I don't know.
Well, see, I was saying off before the show, I was saying logic isn't this film's strong suit. I think something like that, I think, can be forgiven because hardly anyone's going to notice. Like, for me knowing a lot about, like, military hardware, that sequence where the upgrade Predator spaceship was in the atmosphere and you had two, I think at least one of them was an F-22. They might have both been F-22. And they both... Yeah, and they both had this scene, and I was thinking to myself, like, because they don't just go by it and chase it. You see another scene where several minutes later they're still right on its tail, just a few feet away, and I think one of the Predators sort of looks up in the sky and it's going overhead. At that point, me as someone who knows about military hardware, I'm thinking they'd air brake, they'd get some range, and they'd fire at it from a distance, even if it's with like cannon or something. They don't have to hit it with missiles, but they'd want distance. So for me, that was one of those things where I thought, but I recognised that like casual film goes, they aren't going to care about that any more than they cared about in Requiem. There was an F-35 carrying a nuke. I know that can't carry it. It would have been better if there was a
F-22.
Yeah, an F-22 could, but if you had a B-1 strategic bomber thundering over at low level, that would have been way more impressive, and it would have been technically accurate. But the film goes, they're not going to care about that. They're going to care when some of the weirdness that just doesn't stand up to scrutiny, when they come to sit down and think about that, like, I want the child, he's been more of a warrior than you. That child shown from the Predator's perspective, anything, any traits to do with a warrior, I think stuff like that people are going to go, ugh. But things like the geography and me knowing in a real situation what jets would do to intercept, that's not going to bother people.
But
stuff
the motorcycles,
like the lab hardly having any security in it is a bit.
And a bunch of motorcycles ready to go. That made no damn sense.
That would have been right outside that military base too, wouldn't it?
As an ignorant Brit, I couldn't give a shit about American geography. So
It's
it
an
didn't bother me at
international
all.
audience too.
No, but it's not just American. They're going from Mexico to America. Like,
Well, it's all the continent of America, is it not?
Central America.
The Americas.
Is that
It
considered
says
North
America in the name. It says America
Okay.
in the name.
Well,
But yeah, in terms of the get to the choppers thing, fucking
I chuckled when I heard that. But
I hated
it was
that it was
cheesy.
there, but I'm so glad it was one of like 2 fucking moments in the film that actually did it. The other being Olivia Munn's "You're One Beautiful Motherfucker." I groaned like a bastard at that, but I'm so glad that it was just.
Wasn't there one more? I'm trying to think. I know there was one more.
It nearly got to "There's something in the trees" or "There's something out there," but it never finished it.
It's like in the Terminator films. Now everybody says at least once, "Come with me if you want to live," and it's got to the stage where every time they say it, it's now got to be like a joke. They don't even try to do it seriously.
There was one more. He says, "What the hell are you?" before killing the.
Oh yeah. I noticed
Predator.
that. Yeah, and then he just shoots it anyway.
Yeah.
Reused dialogue is a cancer of sequels.
Yeah, you don't like that one.
I fucking hate it so much.
Like
they
the
also
little dippy birds in the AvP.
You see, that doesn't bother me. That's not intrusive. That is not intrusive. When they reuse dialogue, they take a moment to turn and wink at the audience when they do
wink,
it.
yeah.
That's why I don't like it. It ruins
Get
the flow.
to the choppers, wink.
But I tell you what, speaking of, calling back to the originals too much, something I did like about this one was that they didn't try and ape on the old stories too much. Yes, it may have fallen apart, and yes, it might not have been as cohesive as I would have liked or as streamlined as I would have liked, but I'm glad they did something different with it.
Agreed. I just think it was cut up in the edit to its own detriment.
You can't deny that. You can't deny that at all.
Yeah, if you're gonna hire Shane Black, let him do his thing, and I would have had problems with that too, I'm sure. But I think it would have, just for the insanity of it, would have been a more fun ride. One more thing, we got to hear Predator vocalize in its own language for the first time, which kind of reminded me of AvP 2010 because you heard them do it there, but it was kind of cool to see it in the movie
with off-center subtitles for some reason.
That didn't bother me. I thought that was
just weird because they usually put them center down the bottom of the screen, and it was like off to one side, and it was. Oh, that's an interesting choice.
That was cool. Again, it's something that wasn't really played on either. But then again, would it have got too cheesy if they'd have gone on too long with it? Would it have been daft if we'd have seen full conversations?
Yeah. The vocal mimicry was cool too. There was one scene that it was brief in the lab where he uses, and you can see him drop his hand too. They didn't make a big deal of it, but you see him drop his hand like he scanned one of the guy's hands and he used his voice. But even in the intro when he's using the vocal mimicry, it was a cool effect. Like I always like seeing that.
Can we just point out the fact he would have had to defecate that cloaking device out and like?
Oh yeah,
he's literally coming out of the toilet.
For a long time.
You can tell he's been to the toilet, and they're commenting on him just having used the lavatory, and then a few moments later, either him or Brackett are using it, and all I could think of was, that's just come out that guy's ass. And you would have thought the size of that thing, he's not going to have an easy time to get it out.
How long did he have it in there as well? I guess we don't actually know.
It was nice and clean.
Yeah, that I did chuckle at that, to be honest.
What did you guys think of the end fight sequence, like when they're all on the spacecraft and then it crashes and they fight the upgrade?
I thought that was okay. That was one of the bits that I thought was, that was. Some people have a problem with that, but I thought it was a decent fight sequence.
I think it was earned. I do think that one was earned. The upgrade had been, claymored, it'd been set on fire with a phosphorus fucking flare, stabbed in the face, shot in the face. Yeah, I didn't feel like that was unconvincing in the slightest. I loved the shield cutting his arm off. I mean, that must have been some fucking pain.
I didn't like the shield. I again, that goes with the tearing a hole through space. I just thought it was a little too fantastical. What? Even with the Predator's advanced technology, it just went a little too far for me.
Ah, no, that's too nitpicky. That's
because it's like, this is realistic sci-fi. At least it's supposed to be like Alien and Predator.
Well,
they have shields of some kind to travel through space at those speeds. Otherwise, you're gonna have fucking holes in your spaceship.
Also, a couple of years ago, British BAE, we got a form of energy shield now on tanks for it works on the principles of like detonating the warhead, but it is an actual energy shield around the tank, which is quite cool. It's not quite Star Wars, but it is a real thing.
Yeah. See, that's when I have a problem, is when we're getting too close to Star Wars, Star Trek territory. I love both of those things, but Alien and Predator series always felt a bit more grounded to me than those. So
the only thing
they're
that I
working
didn't
on it
buy...
in reality. That is going to be something that
they do not have energy shields you can slide down in reality. Come on.
They're working on them.
The only thing I didn't buy about it was it sort of like slowly came across in little triangle segments. I think it should have been more believable if it would just instantaneous. It just generates and pushes you away.
Yeah.
I think it could have still cut someone's arm off or something if they'd have done it in an inventive way, but I think I would have preferred it like that, but that's just an aesthetic choice.
I'll tell you what I did have a problem with during that sequence was, though, the fucking seemingly random explosive device.
Which one?
That gets put on the blade. So it took me until about my third thing to realise that it was the thing that the bracket had thrown to get the predator, the predator dog in the trailer. You don't really get a glimpse at it, but it's supposed to be that device. I think in the original in the leak script, it was all the hybrids had self-destruct collars on, and it was that particular dog's collar. And he wrapped it around the blade and shot it into it, and it detonated. I did like the idea, I did like the blade embedding and detonating with a predator device. I just didn't fucking know what had happened the first two times.
Yeah, there were some parts that were a little confusing. I think that is down to the editing.
Oh, how awesome was the I love the fucking ion cannon thing, the wrist-mounted plasma cannon. I love that.
Yeah, that always reminds me of the energy flechette from AvP 2, where because that was the first time you saw something like that. Yeah, it was in Primal Hunt, where it was more of a rapid fire one of that.
It was shit in the game, which I guess was kind of based on the because the City Hunter has a wrist-mounted rocket thing, but you only see it used once.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got that Boba Fett wrist rocket.
But I think that just came down to effects in that movie, because the plasma caster is just a firework in that movie too. So
I think I would like to mention though, this is one of the things where when I mentioned earlier about a little cartoonish, it's played as a gag, and I chuckled a bit when I saw it, but it's one of those things where when you think about it, there's a moment where Rory's walking along like it's Halloween, and I wish they'd have actually made more use of the Halloween theme, because, you have cadavers and skulls and things. It seems like it would be perfect for a Predator film. I was actually hoping to see that worked into it more, but he's wandering around along with this mask, and there's this little gag where, someone throws something at the mask and the gun fires. Rory has destroyed a house and killed at least one adult, and nobody seems to have any. It's just
in the script
off,
a
cop. The little kids killed someone.
In the script, a cop holds him up, so that wasn't in the movie.
No, he just wanders along, and that's one of the other things we do. Some of the Aspergers will avoid. Not pacifist, but we avoid violence and confrontation, and this little kid who just blown up an entire house, killed someone, and he just wandered there. It's one of the things I didn't think of until the journey home, and I went, wait a minute.
That was automatic. And I think he dropped the helmet because it scared him or something like that. So.
Did anybody see that? Speaking of Halloween, did anybody see the red chicken suit?
No, I missed that, but I heard about it. I'll be looking for it next time. I did see the werewolf though from the Monster Squad.
What, with all the Halloween parade?
Yeah, like all the trick or treaters, the original Predator
suit.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I think it took me until my third time to pick it up.
Is it a blink and you miss it thing?
Not massively, but the speed that movie moves at.
Ridgetop,
we're part of the problem. We're bitching about this film and we've both been to see it 3 times.
Well, again, I'll say it like I told you before, like 3 times is not much for me for an Alien and Predator film. Like I saw Covenant 3 times, and I only paid for 2 of the times that I saw it. So I wish I
Bloody
would,
hates that.
I wish I would want to see it more. To be honest, it's a shame. I'm still going to get it on Blu-ray. I want to see the
Same.
special features, and I hope they are extensive because for this movie it kind of feels like it needs to be. But
I expect to be let down, to be honest, with the home release.
I think the director's commentary would be interesting for this.
If he's done one, that fed up he sounds.
He does.
So, Ridge Top then, scores.
I'll be nice. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 because it was fun. But again, I'm going to say it's the worst Predator film. All the other Predator films for me, like the first one is like 9 out of 10. Second one is about an 8 out of 10. Third one, also 8 out of 10. This one is a 6 out of 10 for me. But really, I'm leaning towards 5, but I'm like, it was fun. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
Xenomorphin?
Somewhere between 5. The likability of the characters and there are some good humorous moments. There are some nice action scenes. Sort of edges it towards 6 out of 10, so 5 or 6 out of 10. It's as I said, okay-ish, light-hearted action movie, but it's not what a Predator movie should be, in my estimation.
Where would you place it in terms of the other films? At the bottom? I know you have a very love-hate relationship with number 2.
The first Predator is the best in my estimation. Predator 2, I don't like the parts where the Predator isn't in it, but when the Predator is in it, it has that mythological impact. I think that was the last of the Predator films which actually conveyed that properly. I'll put it on a par with Predators because although I think Predator... Well, no. Here's my thing. Predators had much more cohesive story structure. It made more sense. It had a better atmosphere. But I think you can have more of a humorous good time with this in terms of the characters. Mm-hmm. So I would say on a par with Predators, but I think Predators is probably the better film. So maybe an inch or two below that. But it does have fun moments. You can go out for a fun time, but watch it just as a fun film, not a Predator film.
I would go Predators, Predator 2, and then The Predator. And I would also sit between a 5 and a 6. I would give it a 6 primarily just because of how much fun I have with the film, and I put that down to the cast and the characters, and the effects, the Predator effects. But the plot just falls apart for me, which makes it frustrating, and that frustrates me. It's like the Star Trek reboot for me. It's fun, the character stuff's interesting, but when I think about what happens in the film, it gets on my tits.
You want it to be better than it ultimately is, and it should be better.
There's lots of stuff in there that I would love to see just given its own story and focused on.
It needed polishing.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get anything for a long while after this.
No.
I mean, we are recording this about a week after release. When was it out? The 12th. So nearly a week. Opening weekend was lower ends of the estimate.
We'll see how much of a second weekend drop it has. But yeah, this didn't do as well as Fox was hoping, and neither did Covenant. So unfortunately, I think you're right. I think this will be the last one we see for a good while, especially with the Disney deal. Like, who knows how that's going to affect things. Like, I'm wondering if it's time for AvP to come back again.
Well, I was just going to say, on the AvP front, between this and Covenant not financially performing well, that puts the chances of another AvP film down a few notches, I think.
I wouldn't expect to see an AvP with the failures of these two. Well, not necessarily failures, but disappointments of...
it's all about the money.
Two. I mean, personally, I'd rather they just go for a lower budget and go for something more low-key.
Yeah, Yeah, which is
tighter.
why I hope. I mean, there was some rumor about Blumhouse maybe acquiring the Alien license if Disney doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, but they do their films with like a $5 million budget. That would cover some of the set design of an Alien film.
Depends on the movie. They did Upgrade as well, I believe, and that movie I heard was a really good time. They can
watch that.
Yeah, they can make pretty kick-ass movies with a lower budget, and not all of them are in the 10 million range. Some of them push it a little higher, but yes, they do specialize in lower budget horror films. But I think you could make a great low budget Alien or Predator.
I think you could, but you'd need the talent.
The problem is the sets inherently with the sci-fi stuff, cost a fortune just on that alone. I think Predators was 40 mil, and I think if they hadn't have rushed that film, then that would have been good for 40 mil. AvP was 60 mil.
Yep.
And that looked
AvPR
fantastic.
was about 30, I believe.
We don't care about that, the suburbs. But the set construction on AvP, it looked a lot more expensive than that film was.
Oh, that looks so much better than its budget was. Yeah.
AvP had great production design with the temple sets and stuff.
Yeah. Once you realise its budget, you're amazed.
I think 40 to 60 mil would probably be the sweet spot for these.
But luckily, the expanded universe is great right now. Like, that's what's keeping me excited as a fan. Mm-hmm. So as long as that keeps going as it has been, as long as Titan and Dark Horse keeps pumping them out, and we get this new game that's supposedly in development, then yeah, I mean, I think that'll hold me over. Maybe it's a good thing that the movies could use a break.
Could use a break. It's been a massive break since we got these ones.
That's true.
Yeah, this has been like 4 years.
Eight years. This has been in production 4 years. It's been 8 years since we got Predators. But then again, there's always been a particularly significant break between films. I mean, it was 20 years between P2 and Predators.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but
that's a bit too long.
A financial failure. That's why they didn't make one for ages with that.
But like you say, Ridgetop, as long as the EU keeps knocking it out of the park, I'm happy. Which it has been. I think the only disappointment I've ever had was Bug Hunt and of course Colonial Marines. But otherwise, I think we've been having a good time. I just want them to fucking knock it out of the park on the big screen for once.
Agreed. And I am really looking forward to seeing what the fans do with those funded fan films that are coming out for Alien Day next year. So
especially with that one, what was it? Alien, a love story. It's got love story in the title. I'm intrigued by that.
I don't think that went through. Hang on. I've got to know now.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I just want to know what the hell it's about.
I've made it to the finals.
Hang on, I posted it. Let me find it. Here we go. I found it. So the 6 finalists are Night Shift, Alien Ore, No Escape, Alien Harvest. We're going to have some Alien Ants and Force Gay Sex here on this one, guys. If anybody remembers that script. Alien Alone and The Greenhouse Effect. Those are the titles.
So the love story one is going to be like the Vincent Ward script. It's like going to be a mystery.
Wait, what were you saying about Alien Ants and like what script?
do you not remember Alien Harvest?
No.
Back when Prometheus was coming out, there was a script that claimed to be the Alien prequel, the Prometheus.
Oh yeah, no, I never read that one.
Oh, you should. It's fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant.
Should do a podcast on that one.
You know what? Maybe if we need to scrape some barrels or we need some light-hearted fun one day, maybe.
Do we know who wrote it? Was it just a random?
You know what? The guy actually came on our boards. Didn't say it was him, and it was him. It was his email address that was registered on the script. So yeah, it wasn't John Speeds.
No, but
that was an awful.
Makes you wonder. Yeah.
Anyway,
Vengeance for Wolf.
Yeah, sorry. Another long podcast, guys.
Legends of.
Oh come on! I think you could expect a 2-hour one for this. I think we've managed to do better than the Covenant one. That was like 3 hours.
Yeah, well, there was a lot to talk about with that one.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot to talk about The Predator. This has been a long time coming, and it is what it is.
It is what it is. I
Yeah,
have hopes for the home release.
Yeah, none of us seem to be fans of it, but it has its high points. I just wish it had more logical consistency. Mm-hmm. That's where it falls down.
I still think it's fun. It's worth seeing. So I'm sure everyone who's listening to this podcast has seen it. But for some chance, if you haven't, go see it. Go check it out. Like it could use your money.
Yeah, it's very, as they say, Marmite. I think it's one of the ones where you either love it or you hate it, going by the responses, because there seem to be extremes of opinion. Hardly anyone is, like me, sort of in the middle, more or less indifferent about it. They're very much, they adore it, or they think it's the best thing ever. Some people can't even understand how anyone else can see it negatively. And then you get the other people on the other side, and they don't see how it's possible to see it the other way, and it just seems to divide people right down the middle.
Well, you say that, but the most common result seems to be a 50-50, a mix, a middle score.
Okay,
but
disprove me.
Well, it's like with anything, isn't it? The extremes are always the loudest.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, I certainly can't be fucking arsed to try and
silent majority.
Yeah. Anyway.
If you have a cinema pub that, you can bring drinks into the theater, that might help.
Probably would, actually.
I have a couple of the Predator episodes in the pipelines, a couple of interviews. Should be talking to Brian Prince and Kyle Strauss, who performed as the Predators in this, shortly. Currently flirting with Fred Decker, actually, about coming on for an episode, but if he ever hears this one, I don't think he'll want to.
Well, we're not laying into it. We are saying there are positives. It's just that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be fucking arsed if it were my script and I'd listen.
You can't ignore certain flaws.
So we'll see whether that happens or not. And we'll probably get some concept artists as well when they start releasing stuff. I always look forward to the post-release stuff where we get to see all the could-have beens and the various artwork and stuff. So that
there are whole stories, whole thing. Like you look, there's been a recent release of the book David's Drawings.
Oh, that's way good.
It's all the concept. Because if you look at the Adam Savage, he's got his own YouTube channel, and when he went on set to Covenant, and he actually went in David's lab, and all those scrolls that you see hidden away in the walls, and they're all rolled up, he just picked one out at random. Every single one of those had art on it that was meant to be done from the perspective of David, even if we never saw them in the film, but they were all there in case someone wanted to improvise. And it's all that stuff is now collected in that book. So if anyone out there is they're wondering to himself, what was in that lab? It's everything that it's meant to be, the art as drawn from David's perspective. Obviously it's not going to be canon, but it's as close to canonical as, a glimpse into that world as you're going to get.
I can't recommend that book enough. I honestly, on a professional level and on a personal level, I just fucking love Matt and Dane. Fantastic blokes, fantastically talented. There's like a mini interview book in there as well, which is really interesting. Go buy it. Even if you don't like the film, there's no denying how gorgeous that artwork is.
Oh yeah, I don't like the film and I love that book. It's great. I've been going through it.
I'd also like to thank folk who've taken the time to email in or message us with suggestions and comments and stuff like that for the podcast. It's always appreciated. Feel free to continue doing so. It's nice to know that people, listen to these things, that we take the time to research and record and then edit, because I'm quite anal with my editing of these things. The amount of ums and ahs and lip smacking that I go through and take out of these things. So, it always puts a smile on our face hearing people, comment on them. So I always share them with these guys as well in the chat. So yeah, thank you. Thanks everybody. If you're not already, you can check us out on various outlets. We're on Facebook as Alien vs Predator Galaxy or AvP Galaxy. We're on Twitter as AvP Galaxy. Instagram is Alien vs Predator Galaxy, and obviously the website, which is avpgalaxy.net.
And YouTube.
And YouTube. Ugh, fucking YouTube. I really want to have more time to put some more effort into that thing. I'm hoping next year. I'm hoping there's going to be a lull in shit so I can actually generate some content.
Yeah.
And TeePublic as well. You know, we've got a store where you can buy our awesome logo on a shirt or on various bits and bobs. You should see my work. I've got fucking about 3 different mugs with our logos on it. Shirting
Self-promotion.
No, it's brand pride is what it is. I've even got a photo.
It is.
I'm proud of what we do, and you know, I like to support the logo. If you want to follow me personally on Twitter, I am @_Corporal Hicks. And if you want to learn a bit more about me, Perfect Organism has just published a little fan spotlight thing in which I talk JM's ear off for about an hour about my history in the fandom, some of the history of the website, and some of the older website. What about you guys? Where can you be found online?
If you'd like to follow me personally on Twitter, it's @RichTop21. It's the same for Instagram as well.
I've got a DeviantArt page where I put my CGI stuff up on. It's at Scentanalysis. I'm not going to spell it out, but if you see my my forum profile, it's got the link on there. And I'm getting back into that now because I've been doing a fantasy book cover project thing, which I'm still involved in, but I'm now doing a lot more of the vampire stuff, and I will eventually start uploading some of the stuff I've done for my Alien fan film project stuff, which is still under wraps. And I'm sure Hicks will want to interview me and has said so since 2013.
Yeah, you got to give us a sneak peek
coming.
of that stuff.
I know. The first one's a Hellraiser Alien crossover thing, so that's going to be the first one that goes out. But that's more of a comic, though.
Well, you used to update the thread on the boards with.
I know, but then there are certain things that you're just like a lot of it. I'm just doing experimental techniques because, especially when you're trying to recapture that visual, you know, that atmosphere that you associate with Alien films. And you know what you don't like, and you know what you do like, and you think, oh, wow, and I've actually got, like, say, a new technique for doing a fisheye lens or whatever, and then you try and work that into stuff, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's involved, basically, and it's just me going, oh, okay, that's it, I'll just get rid of that now. Now I know how to do that. But then there's other stuff that I'm just plodding along, and then sometimes there's a whole new rendering engine that comes out, which happened the last time, and I had to redo all that stuff again. So I'm just sort of like, I don't want to jinx it, but yeah, I'm going to start gradually putting stuff up on there again as well. So yeah, it's just got to be one of those things where, you know, fingers crossed. It will come out, but whether it will be before I'm 90, I don't know.
Yeah, I might make progress with my Star Beast versus Hunter comic one year.
You need to find someone who can render that, dude.
I know. I've got to be that guy that goes around asking if artists want to work on a project for free.
Well, you can get commissioned stuff going.
I can't pay for
Depends
stuff.
how much money is. Yeah, exactly. You have to rely on me to do it after I've done these.
We'll see. There's always stuff on that we always want to work on in there.
There is.
Anyway, thank you everybody.
Like podcasts.
Yes. I have so many ideas for these. Thank you everybody for listening. I realise it's been a lot of whining, but hopefully this has still been enjoyable as well.
There always is when it's something dear to our hearts, though, because passions get worked up.
Yep.
Just shows how much we care.
You know what? For November, I want to find something that we all fucking love, and I want to do an episode on whatever the hell that ends up being.
The hamsters from Aliens, where are they now?
Yeah, but is there an hour on that?
There will be when we talk about it.
December time, I'm planning on doing an episode on the original AvP comic, unless something fucking wild happens.
Yes.
We end up having to do a surprise episode or whatever. But yeah, finally hoping to be able to do the original comic.
Wasn't there a
There you go,
rumor they
that's
were
something.
gonna re-release that in hardcover sometime soon?
Yes, it was in. There was a advertisement in something about it.
Are they going to recolor it?
Not recolor it. There was going to be a
okay.
reissue in. Like they've been doing with the original Alien and Aliens. Alien and Aliens, you fucking idiot. The original Alien series is where they did
And
Volume
Predator
1 and
too
2.
now.
Yeah, and they did the core trilogy for Predators and the hardback stuff. Oh, speaking of, Life and Death's just come out in hardback.
Really?
It was-
Did that
yeah.
finally come out?
Yeah, it came out last week, I think.
Oh, I gotta see if that's been shipped to me.
It's on my bookshelf right now.
Is it as big as the
No, it's not as big. There's not
Oh.
as much behind the scenes material in it, unfortunately. It's there's a lot like character design studies and stuff like that, but not as extensive. I assume because it didn't have such a troubled sort of launch, I guess. But it still looks cool. I enjoy that series. We need to do an episode on that series actually. We did Fire and Stone, but we never did a Life and Death episode.
Did we never do Life and Death? I thought we did.
No, we never did a Life and Death episode, so we'll have to do one. But yeah, okay, we need to stop tangenting ourselves here. I guess that's to be expected. Regular listeners will expect that of us.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So thank you everybody for listening. This has been Corporal Hicks.
And Ridgetop?
Xenomorphine?
Getting to the chopper.
Get to the chopper! 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 Get to the chopper!